under a gloomy, suffocating atmosphere as if swallowed by darkness. The light slowly faded. Only the sound of heavy, ragged breathing echoed. Twisted smiles on the faces of the battlefield warriors, stained red with fresh blood. The bloody light rained down relentlessly, leaving no escape. One by one they fell. But on the line between life and death, faint glimmers of hope stubbornly pushed through. We finally made it this far, facing a terrifying rage, but our will still burns brightly. If we can defeat it, Ray mumbled, it'll all be over too quickly. But in that instant, a sharp, cold light pierced through his chest. The sudden onslaught of pain made him freeze. His body trembled as blood gushed from the fatal wound. Gray's eyes became vacant. His dream seemed to come to an end. His body lost its gravity. His legs gave out, his entire body collapsing in helplessness. Blood pooled red on the ground, surrounded by the bodies of those who had fallen in despair. He slowly accepted this as the end. Looking at the ruins and his fallen comrades, Gray's heart grew heavy with shame. Am I really going to die without accomplishing anything? His eyes blazed with hatred towards the creature hovering in midair. One day, an unknown scourge appeared, threatening to wipe out the entire continent. The enemy of humanity. The purger continued to spread destruction. Ray looked at the warrior standing proudly, blocking blows with a shield. He placed his last bit of hope in them. The group of warriors protecting humanity included Brian Miller, the young man who survived a terrifying meteor impact, known as the Shield of the World. The blue-haired girl, Bella Albright, the great sage with the power of an entire legion, summoning shimmering magic circles, ready to face any danger. Beside her was Jacob Bloomfield, an archer in green armor. Every arrow he fired was astonishingly sharp and accurate. He once took down a high-level dragon beast with a single arrow. His title of Divine Archer was not unearned. And Army White, the golden-eyed swordswoman who never flinched from danger. With speed that overcame all obstacles, she was the strongest sword saint in history. Looking at them, Ray felt a surge of inferiority. And us, he thought bitterly. We're just a support unit used and thrown away. The truth was crueler than he imagined. They were just sacrificial pawns. Watching the warriors' masterful combat techniques, Ray couldn't help but admire them. They were on a different level. He thought to himself, watching the graduates from the World Union Academy easily close in on the enemy. The gap between him and them became increasingly clear, like an insurmountable abyss. The purger was suppressed by Bella's magic spheres. Ray lay trembling on the ground, his heart heavy. Whether the support team is here or not, does it even matter? Meanwhile, Army continued her assault. Her powerful slashes sent the enemy reeling. The humiliation in Gray's heart reached its peak. We trained hard too, he screamed inwardly. Army, at a terrifying speed, forced the purger to defend continuously. A final powerful blow wounded it. But instead of fear, it was delighted. Oh, you managed to wound me. Its body radiated a crimson spiritual power stronger than ever before. Not bad. Suddenly, the purger created a vortex of sword energy. Long blades of energy shot forward. In just one move, all the remaining people lost their lives, their bodies dismembered. The brutal scene left Gray speechless. Only one villain remained alive. His pupils contracted in shock. So it's getting serious now, huh? Gray couldn't believe it. It wiped out the entire team with a single slash. And it was just playing around before. He slowly closed his eyes, accepting the harsh reality. There was no way to win. But then Ray jolted. Wait, how long has it been since my heart was pierced? Looking at his reflection in the pool of blood, he wondered, how am I still alive? The sound of dripping blood mixed with a mysterious voice. Found you. Ray felt as if he were being pulled into another dimension. In front of him was a magical light that opened into a black hole. Come, wielder of immense power, the voice echoed. Stunned, Ray stepped into a new world. It was like a desolate city. The wounds on his body had healed. Where am I? The afterlife. He turned around, feeling as if someone was watching. A mysterious figure in a black cloak appeared. Who are you? Ray asked. The figure was Granos. His face was hidden, but he exuded a dignified aura. You are not dead yet. Granos explained, your wounds have been healed. The ancient magical space, covered in a brilliant golden light, stunned Gray. On the magic screen, his wounded body from before appeared. Did you heal me? He asked. Granos replied calmly, no, that was your own power. Gray touched his chest, still doubtful. My power. But Granos admitted, even I cannot analyze your power accurately, but I believe it is even stronger than the purgers, if you know how to control it. Gray was still skeptical. You mean I can win this fight? Granos was cold but firm. I make no promises, but I believe we must destroy it. Before he could finish, Granos lunged forward, piercing Ray's chest as before. But this time a magic circle protected him. Go, Granos whispered. I will lend you my power. Everything happened like a dream. Ray returned to the battlefield. His body was still lying on the ground. He gripped his sword, trying to stand up, The sword suddenly changed. The tip of the blade turned a mysterious black, becoming a dark sword. Granos' voice echoed, "This is your power." "My power is not something an ordinary person can see." Gray readied himself. The sound alerted the purger. It had just turned around when Gray closed in with a powerful slash. Killing intent flared within him. The purger sensed a terrifying source of magical power. Impossible, it retreated in astonishment. Someone this strong exists. Ray advanced without hesitation, with absolute focus. Searching for the enemy's weakness. Don't underestimate me. The purger counterattacked in an instant. Gray's body was sliced apart. He watched in horror as his body shattered, blood splattering everywhere. The purger gloated, "Commendable. You forced me to use my full power." But from behind, Gray's blazing red eyes erupted as if to incinerate everything. The purger's body seemed to be crushed by an invisible force. Gray was enveloped in dark magic, standing proudly in midair, holding the dark sword. The black smoke from the sword merged with his body. The purger panicked. What the hell? It hastily put up a shield, but it was too late. Half of Gray's face was distorted, the dark sword now immense. He slashed straight down. The shield shattered. The blade tore through the purger's body, leaving a giant gash on the ground. "Are you really human?" the purger screamed in despair. Ray replied, his voice full of rage. "That should be my question." Facing the murderer, he stood tall, symbol of survival and vengeance. Suddenly, a savage laugh rang out. Ray quickly stepped back, steadying his stance. Despite having been deeply slashed, the purger stubbornly clung to life. It spoke, its voice deep and hoarse, but full of astonishment. "You're still alive. Truly, your power is not to be underestimated." Its breathing was heavy and ragged. Blood flowed freely. It leaned its face close to Gray's, its eyes flashing with a cold threat. "I will crush you again and again, until you're dead." Not wanting to argue with a madman, Ray didn't respond. He just put all his strength into swinging his sword. A sharp slash cut through the air, heading straight for the purger. The blade roared, so powerful it made its body tremble. The wound gaped open. A strange yellow fluid gushed from its body, accompanied by screams of agony, mixed with venomous curses. But suddenly the purger froze. It clasped its hands together, the slow movement as if summoning something. From deep within its body, strange streams of light began to radiate, as brilliant as an awakened moon. The wings on its back turned a five-colored shimmer like the Milky Way. Its two hands faced each other. A magic circle slowly formed, hovering in midair, emitting an energy that made the air tremble. Time suddenly distorted. Night fell unexpectedly, enveloping everything in a terrifying silence. The purger mumbled, its voice low like a harbinger of fate. "Time's up." A bright moon appeared, casting down a cold silver light. Ray frowned, slightly skeptical. "What the? Did it suddenly become night?" He gave a sharp, unflinching smile. No one realized that Ray had silently appeared behind the purger, as fast as a phantom. His voice echoed softly with a challenge. So what, not giving the enemy time to react, Ray delivered a fatal blow straight to its neck. But unexpectedly, the blade hit an invisible membrane, as hard as steel. Ray froze, his eyes flashing with astonishment. The purger laughed, its voice full of arrogance. "It's useless. In this realm of twilight dreams, nothing can harm me. Don't resist in vain. Take your last look at the stars, Ray." Ray stood frozen, not out of fear, but because of the brilliant light from the sky that was hurtling straight towards him. That light was like a shooting star growing larger at a terrifying speed, burning as if to incinerate everything. The purger's voice crept into Gray's mind, like a wicked whisper. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Now that star was very close. The giant fireball crashed down and exploded right where Gray stood, creating a world-shaking explosion. Everything around turned to ash, the earth and rock crumbling. The purger flew up, looking down smugly at the ruins. A deep crater appeared, but there was no sign of Gray. It laughed loudly. "You can't be revived if you've been turned to dust." But from above, a shimmering magic gate suddenly appeared, confusing the purger. "What?" The gate gradually came into focus. It looked like a giant clock engraved with the word time. A deep voice echoed, "That is Kronos. You've gathered a truly astonishing source of power, but this should be enough to send you back." The purger panicked, its whole body trembling. "Impossible!" Kronos, sitting leisurely above, continued to speak. "Can you hear me, wielder of great power? Use all of my power. I will send you back to the past." The purger's rage exploded. It screamed, "Kronos, you bastard!" Not paying attention to its fury, Kronos continued calmly. "This is all I can do for you." The clock of time began to turn backward. The hour hand roared like fate. As the hand touched the number 1, Kronos' voice faded. "I entrust the fate of this world to you." Perhaps this was not the end, but a new beginning for Gray. Ray woke up, his body lying on a lush green lawn. The sky was clear, gentle sunlight streaming down. This world was strangely peaceful, as if it had never been ravaged. He slowly sat up, his mind hazy. "Where is this Looking around at the vibrant scenery, it felt as if his heart was being healed. In the distance, mountains and forests, houses and villages appeared with a heart-wrenching familiarity. Geno Village. How? He was stunned. Everything felt like a dream. Nostalgic for a place he once called home, Geno Village. The place that was destroyed 15 years ago. How is it still here now? As vibrant as if it had never vanished. Kronos' final words suddenly echoed in his mind. Ray was startled. Did what he said really happen? The rush of emotion made the wound on his wrist throb. Looking down, he recognized an old wound from the days of being bullied, and looked down upon. His body trembled slightly. Painful memories flooded back. No, he told himself in a firm voice. I can't let myself be beaten by them again. In the past, Ray was weak, not strong enough to fight back. They were too strong, and he was just helpless. But now he didn't want to repeat that fate. Destroying the Purger was no longer a pipe dream. Gray stood up and walked towards the forest, reassuring himself. When I'm stronger, I'll deal with them. For now, I don't want to get hurt again. Suddenly, he stopped. In front of him was Boulder's group. They blocked his path, each of their faces ferocious. Boulder spoke in a taunting tone, I've been looking for you. Gray sighed in annoyance. What a pain. They tossed him a sword and ordered, take it. Ray didn't move. His eyes were cold. Seeing this, the others approached, their voices mocking. Playing dumb. Let's have a little spar. Ray tried to avoid it, worried about his unhealed wound. Oh, a spar! Sorry, my wound hasn't healed yet. Thanks for the offer, but I can't join. Boulder and his cronies had no intention of letting him go. They sneered, their contempt obvious. Boulder pretended to reassure him. Don't worry, the blade is super dull. It's safe. Ray looked him straight in the eye, exposing his intentions. No matter how dull the blade is, it's still a lump of iron. What if it hits a vital spot? Before he could finish, Boulder cut him off sharply. Shut up! He slammed the sword to the ground. His eyes flashed. Do you have the right to refuse? Don't like the sword, then let's go barehanded. Boulder charged forward confidently. Ray was stunned. He wants to fight me when I'm unarmed. What kind of fight is this? In Gray's mind, memories flooded back. Before he regressed, a former army medic once said that his swordsmanship never improved because of childhood injuries. Perhaps he thought my useless life started from here. Not wanting to repeat his regrets, not wanting to live a meaningless life, Ray made a sudden decision. Unconsciously, he dodged Boulder's blow. He was also surprised, but didn't stop and continued to attack. Ray dodged again as effortlessly as an instinct. That's slow! Frustrated, Boulder attacked with all his might, but Gray dodged every single one. Every slash missed. He suddenly realized his body was faster, more agile than ever before. Boulder's group was stunned. One of them mumbled, the way he moves, it's like he's a completely different person. Ray picked up the sword from the ground, his grip tight, eyes burning. My body may not be the same as before, but the memories of battle remain. Boulder attacked from above, intending to finish him. Take this! But Ray parried. The force made Boulder stagger and fall backward. Ray was worried, but this time it was for his opponent. He fell from just that. Is it okay to fight a newbie like him? He focused, determined not to yield. No, he doesn't deserve any pity. They tormented me just because I couldn't fight. Gray's eyes grew cold and sharp, determined to change his humiliating past. He delivered a slash that sent Boulder's sword flying. He panicked. Damn it, how was that so easy? Ray stepped forward, his voice low but powerful. You've probably never been trained how to block a sword. The strong, clear voice startled Boulder. But don't worry, you guys taught me that. Ray raised his sword with a cold smile, but his eyes blazed with hostility. As long as the sword is dull, it's okay to hit people. A slash cut across Boulder's shoulder. Fresh blood sprayed out, making him panic. Hot drops of blood splattered on his face, like a reminder of the throbbing pain. Boulder cringed, clutching his shoulder and screaming in pain. The situation went far beyond Gray's expectations, because this incident was not part of his plan. He was stunned, hesitating. Isn't the blade supposed to be dull? Doubtful, Gray raised the sword to inspect it. Sure enough, the blade was chipped and riddled with cracks. Gray paused, his heart confused. It's clearly dull. If this sword were sharp, he'd probably be dead already. But that didn't make him soften in the slightest. Gray's eyes turned cold and sharp, without a hint of mercy. He swung the sword, striking Boulder hard across the face. The force of the blow made his nose gush blood. Teeth broke as his body was sent flying backward, tumbling on the ground. Gray was unmoved. He just thought coldly, I'll just keep this dull sword. He stepped closer, completely overpowering Boulder, who was crawling on the ground. Ray mocked, his voice low but sharp. What's wrong screaming so loudly? Boulder trembled, tears welling up. But Ray continued to criticize him. Where's the guy who said a dull sword would be safe? His face relaxed, faint smile on his lips, but his eyes burned with unconcealed rage. Was it you? Ray growled. Boulder was too scared to utter a word. Just when he thought he had learned his lesson, Boulder suddenly turned to his cronies and yelled, "What are you guys standing there for?" "Get him," the chubby guy, after witnessing the recent fight, hesitated, visibly muttering, He's too strong." But the mushroom-haired guy was still aggressive, looking down on everyone. He shouted, "Jump him, get him from behind." The whole group rushed forward at once, each from a different direction, surrounding Gray. He stood proudly, his eyes cold and fearless. "What's this? Want another round?" The group attacked wildly, but Gray stood still, completely unfazed. He mumbled, his voice low like fate, "I was going to let it slide." But now only the sound of pained groans echoed. One by one, their faces bruised, they rolled on the ground. Looking at Boulder and his cronies kneeling, Gray suddenly remembered the dark days of his past. Back then, he had trembled before them. He spoke sharply. "You guys are from the Sia Swordsmanship Dojo." "Right." Boulder didn't dare to look him in the eye, but still nodded in acknowledgement. The chubby guy mumbled, "We thought we were strong enough, so we haven't been going there lately." Ray sighed, helpless at their childish thinking. Strong enough, really? He shook his head, telling himself not to expect too much from the dojo. But it still has its value. Resting the sword on his shoulder, Ray commanded, "Get me into the dojo. That place only accepts people by recommendation." "Right." Boulder looked down, his eyes filled with shame. "Can't you ask someone else? If I tell my master that I lost, I can't imagine what she'll say." Ray slashed through the air. The sword, cutting through the wind, startled Boulder. "Then how about we continue our unfinished business?" Boulder's face darkened, scared, as if being chased by a ghost. He abandoned his companions, running for his life, shouting back, "I'll get you a recommendation. The dojo is this way." The others were stunned. "What?" "Boulder, don't leave us behind." A while later, Boulder and his crew led Gray to a bustling town. Ray was curious. "So why do you want to go to the dojo?" He answered nonchalantly, "This dojo has a recommendation spot for the academy, right?" Boulder had been skipping class for days. He only knew vaguely, "Yeah, I've heard something about that." Ray nodded. "That's why I want to go." The long-haired guy interjected, "I think you're strong enough without the academy." Gray was strict with himself, not letting the praise sway him. "How great would it be if I were really strong enough?" The memory of the battle with the Purger flooded back, making him pensive. Even the world's strongest team? Couldn't touch it. Even using all my power, Ray still couldn't inflict any damage. The image of the Purger powering up urged him on. "How much stronger do I have to get to defeat it?" Boulder signaled that they had arrived. The only reason Ray came to the dojo was to get stronger. For a moment, he felt a restraining force, if only for a second. He remembered the days training with the Sword Saint, the moments of absolute focus on swordsmanship. If I had spent more time training, under the same conditions as the Sword Saint, the outcome of the battle might have been different. Ray suddenly realized his mission upon returning to the past. "This must be why Kronos sent me here." A female voice pulled Ray back to reality. "So in short, what is it you wanted to tell me?" Boulder's group was kneeling on the floor, repentant. The woman in front of them, surely their master, questioned them. "You used the techniques I taught you to bully a civilian, and in the end you got your asses handed to you?" That was Saria, the instructor of the Sia Swordsmanship Dojo, a young woman with platinum blonde hair covering one eye, her sharp gaze full of authority. Boulder tried to make excuses. "It wasn't like that. We just wanted to have a friendly spar." Enraged, Saria swung her hand, sending Boulder flying. The rest of the group trembled. She taught them sternly, "Who gave you the right to make excuses? If you consider beating an unarmed person a friendly spar, then what just happened was also just a friendly spar." "Right." Her wooden sword pointed straight at Boulder's eye. Her gaze was disappointed and merciless. "Leave, and never come back from now on. None of you are to identify yourselves as students of this dojo." Boulder's group shuffled away, supporting each other in shame. Saria turned. Gray knelt on one knee and said sincerely, "I'm sorry about that. It seems my former students caused you some trouble." Gray waved his hand. "Don't worry about it." Saria thanked him for his kindness, then got straight to the point. "I heard earlier that you want a recommendation to the academy." Gray nodded. She pulled a wooden sword from a rack. "To apologize for this trouble with Boulder and his group. I need to verify your abilities before I can write a letter of recommendation." She handed the wooden sword to Gray. He took it and nodded. "Understood." The two entered a fighting stance. Saria yielded. "You can go first. Start whenever you're ready." Ray didn't hesitate. "Here I come." He lunged forward with incredible speed. Saria skillfully defended her eyes, never leaving his every move. She thought to herself, his swordsmanship is very practical. It's as if he's been through countless battles at his age. Truly astonishing. Ray lowered his body and attacked from the side. Saria acknowledged. Boulder and the others are no match for him. Ray's movements were sharp with no wasted motion. It was like he was self-taught, yet it bore the hallmarks of high-level swordsmanship. Saria wondered, did someone teach him? but his sword lines are still rough. He's a diamond in the rough. Saria began to fight seriously. It's a shame to end it so soon, but it's time to bring down the curtain. She increased her speed, but Ray was not outmatched. With his sharp senses, he dodged the blow and even kept up with her movements. Saria was inwardly astonished. How strange. Why isn't he wavering? How can he keep up with me? Her body was gradually tiring, but Ray remained steady. She wavered. I was just planning to test his abilities. Why am I going all out now? Ray swung his sword powerfully, forcing Saria to retreat. She was startled. It was just one slash, but why do I have such a bad feeling? The floorboards cracked under the force of the sword. Saria, both astonished and intrigued, declared, "It ends here," but that confidence quickly vanished. When she realized with a shock that her wooden sword had been unexpectedly broken by Ray's slash. Faced with the unexpected situation, Saria couldn't react in time. She could only stammer out a cry. Her wooden sword lay on the floor, cold, shattered, a testament to her opponent's terrifying power. Looking at the scene before him, Ray thought to himself, this feeling, it's exactly the same as back then, so I really do possess that power. Suddenly a sharp pain shot through him, so strong it made him collapse with a loud cry. Seeing Gray's unusual state, Saria asked worriedly, "What is it? Are you okay?" Ray gritted his teeth, his face contorted in pain. He guessed, "My body can't handle that terrifying power." Immediately, Ray tried to calm himself and shakily stood up. He stammered in a weak voice, I'm fine." Sweat beaded on his forehead. He lamented internally, "I can't even stand steady. I shouldn't abuse this power." Looking at Saria in front of him, he hesitated. Should I tell her about this? Sensing Gray's strange gaze, Saria frowned in confusion. After composing himself, Ray quickly dismissed his initial thought. No, it's better not to. Even if I told her, she'd hardly believe it. Besides, this is something I can't even control myself. Seeing the tense situation, Ray scratched his head awkwardly and explained to Saria, "I was just a little distracted." Hearing Ray's words, Saria fell silent. Her eyes seemed to disbelieve what she had just witnessed. She looked in shock at the broken wooden sword, thinking to herself, "Breaking my sword with a dull wooden one is impossible." She concluded, he must have realized that too. Seeing Saria standing motionless for so long, Ray began to get nervous. He hesitated and asked, "Is something wrong?" The more she observed the small student before her, the more troubled Saria became. "Is he not going to say anything about it?" She closed her eyes, her expression serious for a long moment. After thinking, she turned her back, walked to a wooden barrel, threw the broken sword in, and spoke. "All right, you said you want a recommendation to the academy." "Right." Hearing the question, Ray showed a tense expression and nodded in reply. "Yes, I heard you could do that." As soon as she finished speaking, Saria affirmed with certainty, "Yes, of course. I can introduce you to the most prestigious academy in the kingdom, the Royal Academy of Swordsmanship." She paused, hesitated, then added, "But I advise you not to go there." Saria's expression darkened. Her voice lowered, emphasizing, "You are not suited for that place." Her words plunged Gray's mood into a dark abyss. He tightened his grip on the wooden sword, his mind filled with resentful thoughts. "I know I'm not strong enough. In the end, I can't do anything." As if understanding his thoughts, Saria spoke up, shattering his disappointment. "The place you should go is the World Federation Academy." Her firm words stunned Gray. His pupils contracted in astonishment. She continued, her voice full of conviction. "The place you need to go is not the most prestigious academy in the kingdom, but the most prestigious academy in the world." The statement startled Gray, his heart pounding. "The World Federation Academy? Isn't that where the Sword Saint and the others came from?" Excited, he asked in a loud voice, "Can someone like me really get in there?" Saria shook her head, looking helpless. "You can't," she explained. "You must have realized it yourself. Your current body is not fit to be a swordsman." Saria was stern, her eyes appraising. "At the Royal Academy, you might get by on skill alone, but at the World Federation Academy, that's impossible. How can you reach that level with such a weak body?" Unable to refute the harsh words, Gray stammered, "Yeah." Disappointment flickered in his eyes. Heavy thoughts arose. "Everyone at that academy is a monster. With this body, I don't stand a chance." In the dim light of the room, Saria spoke coldly. "Giving up already? There are still 9 months until the entrance exam." Knowing the remaining time, Gray was flustered. "Only 9 months." Saria agreed. "Yes, it probably isn't enough time." But she immediately hardened her tone. "But trust in me." Her voice carried a threatening tone. "For these 9 months, are you ready to endure torture?" Gray looked at his palm and answered vaguely, "I don't want to endure torture, but I will." He clenched his fist, placed it over his chest, and said heroically, "For the next 9 months, please take care of me." Receiving his answer, Saria gave a triumphant smile. "Very good." The atmosphere suddenly became still. Gray trembled, listening as Saria spoke. Saria's expression became fearsome. Her threatening voice said, "Let the days of hell begin." Immediately after, images of Gray's arduous days appeared, intertwined with Saria's stern demeanor. She always shouted, pushing him in every training session. Time flew by. 8 months later, Gray's body was toned and stronger. Looking at him, Saria praised thoughtfully, "You've become much more robust." Pride was evident on her face. A gentle smile while crossing her arms. "I have nothing left to teach you. From now on, walk with confidence." Gray froze his eyes wide with surprise and asked, "But there's still a month until the exam." Seeing his surprise, Saria explained, "You'll have a hard time in an unfamiliar place. It's best to get there early." She held out her hand, giving him a brown pouch. "This is money for the trip and enough food money for a month." Feeling her thoughtfulness, Gray awkwardly waved his hands in refusal. "But isn't leaving a month early too soon?" The golden sunlight shone through the doorframe, elongating the shadows of the master and student. Gray confessed, "It feels like you want to kick me out of the village." Saria smiled gently, her eyes half closed, consoling him. "You're overthinking it." Suddenly, Gray mentioned something that startled Saria. "I heard there's a goblin den nearby and the village doesn't have many guards." Saria didn't deny it, replying softly, "Ah, that's right. There is indeed a den." She turned away awkwardly, explaining gently, "But it has nothing to do with us." She smiled, pretending everything was fine. "There will be aid from the capital, so we don't need to worry." She reassured Gray, "Just go take your exam, don't worry." But Gray thought to himself, she's lying. There will be no aid for the village, and before the village is destroyed, Master will lose her life. An image of Saria, covered in blood, lying motionless on the ground, appeared in Gray's mind. They said she charged into the goblin den by herself and was killed. Even so, Gray pretended not to know and replied calmly, "I understand." His easy agreement made Saria slightly suspicious. Gray placed a hand on his chest, expressing his gratitude. "Thank you." Gray's gaze was resolute and confident. "I'm leaving now." Saria's lips curved into a heartfelt smile. She sent her wishes, "I hope you pass the exam." After Gray left, Saria quietly walked into the deep forest under the night sky. The hazy moonlight was clearly visible. A dry skeleton with a sword stuck in its mouth appeared. Saria touched the bloodstain on the ground and muttered, "According to the scout report, they are over there." Suddenly a voice rang out in the quiet night, startling her. "Where are you going?" A familiar figure appeared on a high tree branch, pitch black. It was Gray. Gray put on a concerned expression, pretending to ask his master, "Where are you going?" He was moving, when suddenly a loud call came from behind him. "Gray!" He turned around to see Saria. She spoke, her eyes full of suspicion. "Why are you here? Shouldn't you be at the academy by now?" Gray jumped down from the branch, replying in a low but sharp voice, "I should be the one asking that question. I thought you said the goblin den would be handled by the capital's forces." Saria waved her hand and replied, "They said they couldn't come due to an emergency, so I planned to handle it myself." She added confidently, "Anyway, I'm enough on my own. Thanks to the scout's report, I know the strength of that den." She sighed, her eyes becoming pensive for a moment. "The goblin boss is a high goblin, and in that den there are about 40 to 50 monsters. I have to admit that number is a bit troublesome." Gray listened, pondering silently. A high goblin, huh? He recalled past battles. He realized the goblin's strength wasn't in its physique, but in its intelligence and leadership. He spoke up. "If you get surrounded, fighting alone is suicide." Certainty formed in his mind. Looking straight at Saria, Gray stated firmly, "If I let you go alone, Master, you won't come back alive, and the village will be destroyed by them." He emphasized, "I've seen that future with my own eyes." Breaking from his thoughts, he said, "Let me go with you." But Saria stopped him, her voice firm. "I already said I'm enough on my own." Gray didn't waver, his gaze steady. "I don't want to miss the chance to gain real combat experience. Or do you think I'll get in the way?" Saria explained, "You know very well you wouldn't get in my way." She thought to herself, "He's even stronger than me in a sparring match." She turned her voice soft but serious. "But who knows what will happen in a real fight, especially when a monster den appears so suddenly like this." She stated firmly, "Something this dangerous? You should wait until you have more combat experience." But Gray remained adamant, his voice sharp. "So you really want to go alone?" "In that case, I have an idea." Saria frowned. "What idea?" Gray stepped closer and declared, "I will fight you. I'll take you down quickly." Then he added powerfully, "And then handle the goblins myself." The space fell into silence. Gray was silent, his sword pointed straight at her. Saria didn't answer either, just smiled lightly. "Fine, I give up." She instructed, her gaze stern. "But you have to promise me one thing. No matter what happens, you must come back safe." Gray lowered his sword and nodded. "All right. That was my plan, too." With that, they both headed deeper into the forest. "You too, Master, don't die," Gray added, half joking, half serious. The scene changes to the goblin den. The two walked and talked. The terrain is treacherous with no way out. Gray assessed, "They're really confident, daring to build a den in a place like this." He observed, "We can't escape either. These monsters are very smart. We have to be careful," Gray warned. Saria nodded. "I know." Her eyes turned cold. The two scouted the situation. "I don't see the goblin boss, probably in the tent," Gray whispered. Saria nodded. "Hopefully we can take down a few before the goblin boss appears." She whispered, "Gray, take them down one by one from that direction." Looking at the camp teeming with goblins, they discussed strategy. Saria said, "I'll handle this direction." The goblins looked grotesque, growling threateningly. Gray replied, "Understood." Saria signaled, "Good, let's go." A goblin caught their scent and turned around. Saria lunged forward, swinging her sword decisively. The monster's head rolled. The goblins behind roared in anger. The entire mob of goblins chaotically gathered and swarmed over. Gray was no less valiant. He swung his sword lightly, a sharp, clean cut. The goblins didn't have time to react. Blood splattered everywhere, a chaotic scene. Saria didn't back down either, fighting against the dense horde of goblins. Gray rushed forward, cutting down several goblins with one swing. The two stopped, surrounded by monster corpses. Saria praised, "Not bad." "Is this really your first time?" Gray advised, "Master, don't get careless." "We've only just begun." He was confused. "This is strange, they're too weak." If that's the case, Master could have handled this completely. Suddenly a thought struck him. He glanced toward the distant tent. A pair of glowing red eyes were watching, gruesome and horrifying. Gray shivered and yelled, "Saria, let's go run." She was surprised. "What is it?" Gray was losing his cool. "Just run." Saria was stunned but still obeyed. "All right," she replied, and they both ran for their lives. Behind them, a goblin gave chase. Gray's eyes widened, realizing the goblin looked unusually strong. Its every footstep made the ground tremble. He gave a sinister smile under the moonlight. "A high goblin," he said. Saria nodded. "It's an honor for the goblin boss to come to us himself." But Gray suddenly shouted, "No, that's not the goblin boss." A grotesque mouth opened wide. Behind it, a horde of goblins swarmed forward, growling chaotically. Saria panicked. "What is that?" Gray stated, "A goblin warlord." "That's the real goblin boss." A giant monster holding an axe led the goblin horde. Saria came to her senses. "A goblin warlord? We can't handle this type of monster." Saria panicked and yelled at the high goblin in front of them. "Kill this one and then run." She swung her sword, slashing its arm. Blood gushed out, but she was stunned when the wound began to heal. Saria was bewildered. "The wound is healing itself." Gray rushed forward. "It's useless," he explained. "The goblin warlord's roar boosts its allies' strength and regeneration. That's why they're abnormally strong." He emphasized, "We can't kill a single one of them." Gray suddenly had an idea. "Master, I'll leave the goblin behind you to you. You don't need to kill it. Just buy time." Saria turned to him. "What are you going to do?" Gray's expression was cold. "There's only one option left," he said sharply. "Annihilate that bastard." Gray's mouth curved into a sinister, arrogant smile. He swung his sword at the goblin in front of him. The blade cut through the air, creating a brilliant streak of light. As he fought, he thought to himself, "It's so annoying how they keep trying to ambush me." He slashed again. The sharp blade lunged straight at the goblin. It didn't give up. It immediately raised its axe and swung it hard at Gray. As he parried, he calculated his next move in his head. "Right now, I just need to focus on destroying all enemies in front of me." But a second later, something unexpected happened. Gray's sword shattered into small pieces the moment he swung it down. He looked at the hilt remaining in his hand, his face filled with disbelief. "My sword couldn't handle hitting a strengthened goblin." The goblin wasn't patient enough to wait for Gray to recover. It slammed its axe into the ground, the force pushing Gray back. He quickly drew his spare sword and continued to fight. "Good thing I brought to spare. But this one won't last long either." From a distance, Saria, fighting the goblins, shouted, "Gray, use my spare sword." Gray took the sword, feeling a surge of strength. "Thanks." He held the two swords, ready for a life-or-death battle with the goblin in a brutal fight. "Now I have two, but it's still not enough to wipe out all these monsters." Facing the goblin warlord and the mob of goblins in between, Gray sheathed one sword, deciding to focus. He charged towards the goblin, slashing in a brilliant arc of light, powerful enough to tear through space itself. The goblin didn't back down, swinging its axe straight at Gray's face, drawing blood from his cheek. Gray gritted his teeth, using his sword to block the axe blade. He roared, not hiding his frustration. Immediately after, he drew the other sword from his back, fighting with all his might against the swarming goblins. A stream of light burst from a horrifying skull. The goblin roared, its eyes emitting a brilliant golden light. Gray was stunned by the sight. What, it can buff its allies even more? After being empowered, the goblin continued to swing its axe at Gray. He could only try to resist its terrifying strength. "You've seen through my plan, have you?" The lead goblin roared. Immediately, dozens of goblins rushed towards Gray. He inwardly praised, Your intelligence is truly not to be underestimated. Gray's sword clashed with the sharp axe blade, creating a shower of sparks. After a moment of fierce blocking, Gray broke free from the axe blade. He stepped back to gain momentum and shouted, "Come on!" He charged through the horde of goblins like a whirlwind, leaving them no time to react. Gray swung his sword, trying to take down as many as possible. I don't have time to deal with them one by one. Suddenly, a goblin grabbed hold of Gray. Another one charged, swinging its axe, intending to finish him, but it lunged straight into Gray's sword, dying on the spot. Gray suddenly realized their intention. They're intentionally trying to break my sword by throwing themselves at me. Gray looked up. A shadow blocked the faint light on his face. The ferocious goblin swung a powerful fist. Gray managed to block it with his sword, but the force sent him flying back into a cloud of dust. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, his face covered in wounds. Gray struggled to sit up amidst the rubble, groaning, in pain. He looked at the last sword in his hand. Now only this one is left. He stood up, facing the horde of goblins and the goblin warlord. Facing the whole pack with just one sword, Gray lowered his head, recalling his experiences before regressing. I know I can't win, he admitted helplessly. Even so, Gray still gripped his last sword tightly. He turned towards Saria and shouted, "Master, run." While they're focused on me, run. Saria just smirked, gripping her own sword tightly in response. Sorry, but I can't do that. Gray dodged the goblin's attacks, still trying to persuade her. Are you planning to die for nothing? Master, I'll follow right behind you. Don't worry about me. Saria replied, That's not it. A flicker of helplessness appeared in her eyes. She looked at the wound on her thigh. I can't run anymore. Hearing that, Gray couldn't believe his ears and turned to look at her. Stunned, he looked at the last sword in his hand. I'm out of options. Gray decided to fight a life-or-death battle. I regressed to defeat the purger. He swung the chipped sword, hoping to fight back somehow. But before his eyes, the sword fragments shattered and fell. So it all ends in a place like this. Gray stood there with no weapon to defend himself. Though surrounded by the goblin horde, he refused to give up, gripping the hilt tightly. He told himself, no, it's not over yet. He recalled the moment he was cornered in the past. If I can unlock that power, even against a whole pack, I can still... The broken sword shattered into large pieces. Gray told himself, remember that feeling. He raised the short, broken piece of the sword, closed his eyes, and focused. Suddenly, a brilliant red power erupted. Gray gently slashed through the necks of all the goblins. The sword in his hand transformed into a stream of dense black energy. Saria witnessed this with utter astonishment. Gray stood there, his face covered in blood, but he smiled reassuringly. You're okay now. He swung his sword repeatedly, causing the goblins to fall in droves. Even the strongest goblin was cut down. The goblin chieftain couldn't believe his eyes. Neither could Saria. She never expected her own student to awaken such terrifying power. On her side, she blocked the goblin's axe with just one hand. She calmly taunted, too light. Saria's eyes glinted. You've given me quite a bit of trouble. She flicked her hand and the goblin tumbled backward. Saria thought to herself, without the warlord's buff, your strength is nothing. It was past midnight. The two of them finally defeated the entire goblin horde. Gray spoke, his voice low but full of emotion. Somehow we did it. He held up the broken sword in front of her, apologizing guiltily. I broke your sword. Saria replied calmly, Don't worry, you saved my life. She reached out and took back the broken sword. Gray was still trembling from the last attack. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly collapsed, lying motionless on the ground. Saria rushed over in a panic, shouting, Gray! Gray slowly woke up, his mind hazy. Where am I? He looked around. He only saw a dense black fog enveloping him. A floating door emanated a mysterious black smoke. Gray realized this is that power. The door continuously emitted streams of black energy. If I open it, will I get that power? He pondered, taking slow steps closer. But as soon as he touched it, an invisible force seized him, paralyzing his body. Gray immediately recoiled, moving away from the door. He clutched his chest, trying to breathe, his heart pounding. I don't know why, but if I open this door now, I will die. A tear rolled down his cheek. A message appeared in his mind. Wise decision. Gray snapped back to reality, his eyes wide, his mind returning. He gasped, realizing he was lying on a small bed. Saria stood beside him, calling softly, Gray, you're awake. He asked in a weak voice, Where am I? Saria replied, The village infirmary. You've been unconscious for 5 days. I was afraid you wouldn't wake up again, she said worriedly. Gray put a hand to his forehead, slowly accepting reality. So I've been asleep for 5 days. I must have overexerted myself. It must have affected my body. Saria shook her head. I don't think overexertion is enough to describe what you did. Gray sat up. Saria asked caringly, Putting that aside, are you okay? Can you get up? Gray checked himself and realized something was wrong. I can't put any strength into my right hand. I can move it if I try really hard, but can I still hold a sword? He looked at his bandaged arm and noticed strange black marks. Moreover, this birthmark, Gray muttered. Saria noticed he had trouble moving his hand. It's not moving well. Is it? Gray thought to himself. Can't she see the birthmark? He replied, it's hard to use my dominant arm. Saria nodded as if she had expected it. Just as I thought, it won't heal anytime soon. But what I mean is, all the bones in your right arm were shattered, she added. Gray was stunned. My bones were shattered. But strangely, he felt no pain. Saria pointed to a vial of medicine on the table. We used a magic potion to treat it. Gray looked at the vial, stunned. Aren't magic potions very expensive? Saria sat down on the opposite bed and reassured him. Don't worry, the village chief gave it to us. Gray was surprised. The village chief? Why would he give it to someone like me? Saria replied nonchalantly. What are you talking about? Gray, you are this village's hero. Gray still didn't understand. Suddenly, a white-haired man pushed the door open and entered. He shouted, Gray! The boy clutched the potion vial nervously. Thank you for the magic potion, village chief. The man interrupted. We are the ones who should be thanking you. We're talking about a goblin warlord here. That's a monster that couldn't be harmed. Even if the forces from the surrounding towns gathered together. The village chief continued rushing to the bed and gripping Gray's hand. If you hadn't killed it, the village would have been destroyed. He squeezed the boy's hand with both of his eyes tearing up. If it weren't for you and Saria, this potion, this infirmary, and the lives of the villagers, none of it would exist anymore, he said. Gray was flustered. You're exaggerating, sir. The chief shook his head. You know I'm not exaggerating. Gray looked at the potion and thought, maybe he's right. In the world before my regression, this village was destroyed by goblins. The village chief stood up and bowed respectfully. If you still don't realize the meaning of what you've done, I'm willing to explain in detail, he said, pausing. I heard you'll be participating in the entrance exam for the World Federation Academy. Is that right? Gray nodded. Yes. He suddenly held his chin in thought. I went to kill goblins a week before the exam. If I slept for 5 days, there are only 2 days left. Gray's expression was grave. It's a 3-day walk from here to the academy. I could get there in a day by horse, but I don't have the money. He quickly asked, Village Chief, I'm sorry, but could I possibly borrow a horse? The village chief turned, speaking as he walked away. I knew you would ask, so I've prepared the best horse in the village. At that speed, you'll make it in time. Saria, standing by, added, if you hadn't woken up today. We were planning to carry you there. Gray got out of bed and opened the door, letting in the natural light. He was then surprised by the scene outside. Hundreds of villagers stood cheering, celebrating his awakening. People held up a banner shouting, Thank you. You have to pass the exam. Another person said, Thank you for saving the whole village. A man came forward, handing Gray a small cloth bag. Gray, take this. Gray took the bag and asked, What's this? The other replied, It's what the whole village pitched in for you. We heard the registration fee for the academy is very expensive. Gray was moved, not knowing how to respond. Thank you all so much. As he prepared to leave, he joked, If I fail the exam now, it'll be hard for me to come back here. Saria reassured him, Don't worry. She looked at him, her voice confident. No candidate at the academy can defeat a goblin warlord. Gray was still self-conscious, touching his immobile right arm. But with my right arm like this? Saria interrupted. Your left arm still works fine, doesn't it? Gray checked his left arm. Yes, Saria continued. That's enough. You don't need to use that power. Gray turned to get on the horse but muttered, The exam isn't easy enough to pass with just one hand. Saria stepped closer. It's okay. The examiners aren't blind. They won't overlook your abilities. I guarantee it. She looked straight into his eyes, her voice firm. You will definitely pass. Gray felt empowered. Thank you so much. After you said that, I can't possibly fail now. He thought to himself. This village was destroyed in the previous world, but now it still exists. This world is already different. The future can be changed with this power. Gray looked at the villagers one last time and said his farewells. I'm off. Not long after he arrived at the examination site, he stroked the horse. Thanks to you, I made it in time. Gray looked up at the towering castle before him. So this is the World Federation Academy. The colossal building stood against the blue sky, majestic like a challenge. Against the clear blue sky, the examiner's voice rang out authoritatively. We will now begin distributing the exam papers. Until this process is complete, all candidates must remain in the central arena. As soon as the examiner finished speaking, a series of whispers rose from the crowd below. Are we all candidates? One person whispered. But only about 20 will pass. A few candidates discussed previous exams. I heard the number of people who pass changes every year. Some years they accept 50, but other years only one passes. The examiner's voice boomed again, drowning out the noise. Now please welcome Professor Ariel. Without keeping everyone waiting, a figure with long, fiery red hair appeared, drawing everyone's admiring gazes. She smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's begin right away. We will now hand out the exam papers. Candidates, please take the paper that appears in front of you." She snapped her fingers. A strange golden light flashed up high. In front of Gray, a piece of paper gradually formed from that light. He quickly raised his hand to take it. The paper displayed the information contestant number 513 fencing zone. Seeing that everyone had received theirs, Professor Ariel announced from above, "It seems everyone has their paper. Some of you might be surprised to see that the paper only has your number and your assigned examination zone." She continued in a serious tone, "Rest assured it's the same every year. The World Union Academy does not discriminate based on age, gender, nationality status, or anything else." She reached out, gripping the edge of the table, and said decisively, "Not even your name." She gave a dark smile. "It's of no importance to us." The entrance to the academy stood majestically in the middle of the road. Ariel's voice continued, "Only those who pass the exam and earn the right to cross that bridge will be asked for their names. You can even use a fake name if you want," she added. Ray looked at his exam paper. Annoyed, he thought to himself, "I left my sword at the inn. So why does it say I'm in the fencing zone? What kind of system is this?" As if reading everyone's thoughts, Ariel spoke arrogantly. "I assigned the zones simply by looking at you." Her voice was cold and menacing. "If I'm mistaken, please raise your hand." Hearing this, the crowd murmured in disbelief. She assigned zones just by looking. She's got to be kidding, right? There's no way she could do that with this many people. A few people concluded, "They must have looked into us beforehand. Or maybe she's using some kind of mind-reading magic." Another person whispered. Seeing no one raise a hand, Ariel looked pleased. "It seems no one is in the wrong zone." She continued, "The waiting period is over. Next, I will announce the exam schedule. Please check your slips." Ray immediately looked at his paper. A line of black text appeared. "Contestant number 513, Fencing Zone Day 1, 1100 a.m. He panicked, cursing inwardly. "Damn it! My test is on the first day. I was hoping I'd have more time for my hand to heal." After a moment of silence, Ariel's expression turned grim. She warned sternly, "This is a one-time practical exam. If you are late, you will be automatically disqualified. Make sure to be on time. We do not accept any requests for schedule changes." Gray clutched his right arm, worried he still couldn't put any strength into his dominant hand. "Please just heal by tomorrow. Even just a little." In the blink of an eye, the exam day arrived at the test site. Gray looked at his injured arm. Panicked, he thought, "It hasn't healed at all. I guess I'll have to take the test with my arm like this." Suddenly, the examiner's voice rang out, pulling Ray from his thoughts. "Next contestant, please wait at the arena entrance." Ray took a deep breath, comforting himself. "All right. I shouldn't be pessimistic right now." He clenched his right hand, thinking, "My left hand is still fine, and my right hand can still move a little." Regaining his composure, Gray thought about how to pass the test. "I need to use the time to observe the examiner's movements and find an opening." Before him, a sword fight between an examiner and a contestant was taking place. The examiner spoke. "You may strike first." The contestant immediately replied, "All right." Without hesitation, the contestant gripped his sword, yelled, and charged at the examiner. He swung his sword, slamming it hard onto the wooden floor, creating a loud noise and a thick cloud of white smoke. When the smoke cleared, the examiner stood motionless, completely unharmed. The contestant shouted, "Humph, I'm not done yet." He mustered all his strength and swung his sword at the examiner. But the examiner parried it effortlessly, startling the contestant. "No way!" In an instant, his sword was knocked away. Both he and his sword flew through the air, crashing hard onto the wooden floor with a loud bang. The contestant, pale, clutched his arm, unable to get up. The examiner's cold voice rang out. "Your exam is over. Retrieve your weapon and leave the premises." The contestant mumbled, "Understood." His face filled with disappointment. Witnessing this, Ray smirked slightly, but inside he was panicking. "I'm screwed." The examiner's voice urged, "Next number 513. Ray's face turned serious. "Yes." He thought to himself, "You're telling me to fight a guy who just defeated someone much bigger than me." As if on cue, the examiner repeated, "You may strike first." Ray replied, "All right." Standing on the arena floor, Gray trembled, honestly telling himself, "I don't see any chance of winning, but I'll do whatever it takes." He charged straight at the examiner, shouting, "Here I come." As he ran, he remembered Serial's words. A sword isn't swung with just your arm. You channel the power from your entire body through your arm. Carrying your determination and belief, Ray decided to cling to the hope Serial gave him. "That's what you taught me." "Right, master." Even though his right hand was powerless, he channeled strength through his other muscles. In an instant, he swung the sword, but the slash missed the examiner. A conflict arose within him. "But I can't fight normally." If swinging a sword without arm strength were that easy, no one would bother training their body. The examiner appeared. He suddenly swung his sword at Gray. Observing the movement, Gray noticed his blade was a bit slow. Realizing the weakness, Ray parried the incoming blow and thought, he has incredible power, but his speed and technique are no match for my master's. If I rely on her swordsmanship, I can make up for the difference. Ray launched a series of quick, nimble strikes, confirming his theory. That's right, he's slower. The examiner's face contorted in alarm. He was constantly on edge. Ray judged, he's not as strong as I thought. An image of a smiling Sariel appeared, along with her words full of confidence. You'll definitely pass. Sariel's encouragement gave him strength. With a burning heart, Ray put all his force into knocking the examiner's sword away. He thought to himself, I can actually do this. The fight between the two was fierce, like a spectacular contest of speed. The examiner's attacks were steady, relentless. Ray raised his defense, but was still at a disadvantage. Even though he had grasped his opponent's weakness, even though he had seen through his swordsmanship, Ray tightened his grip on his sword, preparing to counter. He didn't hesitate to attack the examiner's shoulder, but with his vast experience, he easily dodged it. Ray became pensive but had no intention of giving up. He thought the power gap is still too big. I can't break his stance. It's not easy to win with just one hand. Ray attacked continuously, using his top speed. The examiner gradually exposed an opening. Ray assessed the situation. His movements are getting cruder. It's a bit risky, but if I act now, he pulled his sword back, causing the examiner to lose his balance. Ray was ready for his plan. Now come on, just as planned. The examiner charged forward. Ray's eyes glinted with confidence. Gotcha. He swung too hard, it's predictable. He stepped back into a defensive stance. But instead of blocking, Ray nimbly circled behind him, causing the examiner to panic. Seeing his opponent on the defensive, Gray rejoiced inwardly, even with a huge power gap. All I need to do is get behind him. He lunged forward, but the referee's voice rang out, Stop! Just a little more. And Gray's blade would have touched the examiner through his thin clothes. Ray felt unresigned. His body was exhausted. Is the match over already? Isn't it too soon? The referee announced from the stands, time is up. The result is a draw. Ray was stunned, disappointed. I didn't make it in time. He held his sword trembling, then relaxed, accepting the outcome. Ray turned and left the arena, telling himself, I did my best. But if I can't even beat him, I'm going to have a hard time later on. He glanced back at the arena, his heart heavy. Thank you, sir. 1 week later, in meeting room 53 of the World Union Academy, 6 members of the organizing committee sat in a spacious room. The headmaster, an old man with glasses, spoke up. What are your thoughts on the candidates? They've completed the exam, a brown-haired man answered indifferently. Tired, an elderly examiner said cautiously. Having everyone observe at once was a bit inefficient. Next year we should divide the work. The old man with the mustache focused on the benefits. We can't afford to miss out on talent just to save some effort. The headmaster was helpless against their indifference. I was asking for your opinions on the students, not the examination system. Let's start with the swordsmanship course. As the headmaster spoke, small frames appeared on the table. Someone asked who passed. The elderly examiner analyzed, as usual. Those who defeated an examiner have passed. For the rest, we'll consider the quality of their performance and their ability to last the full 15 minutes. What do the swordsmanship course instructors think? He continued, besides those who defeated an examiner, contestants 5219 and 753 stood out. The brown-haired man interjected, let's keep the list at that. The others, even if they pass, won't be able to keep up. The man with the mustache agreed. I concur. Any other opinions? The room was silent. The headmaster concluded, then we'll confirm the list of successful candidates for the swordsmanship course. Suddenly a voice rang out, what about contestant number 530? It was Ariel, the red-haired woman who had been silent until now. What does everyone think of contestant number 513? The man with glasses pondered. The man with the mustache brought up the screen of Gray's match. This kid, it looked like he was about to win, but he had to use a trick. He'll have a hard time keeping up later. Good technique, but he's still weak. I saw him being overwhelmed from start to finish, another person said. The headmaster was hesitant. The man with the mustache shot down the idea of adding Gray. Ariel sighed in frustration. With so many people watching, how did no one notice? This method of having everyone watch is truly a waste. The discussion ended. The next day, everyone came to receive their results. Ray was there holding the notice for contestant number 513. Swordsmanship course day 1. 11 Huzur AM. A loudspeaker announcement began. We will now announce the list of successful candidates for the swordsmanship course. There are a total of 6 successful candidates. Ray was nervous. This is it, the speaker continued. For those who have been accepted, your paper will automatically ignite. Contestant numbers 5217432. 615-753-925. Ray was stunned, despondent. So I really failed. The speaker announced, successful applicants. Please cross the bridge and complete your enrollment procedures today. The atmosphere was chaotic, a mix of joy and sorrow. Ray bowed his head, his heart heavy. Suddenly, the speaker continued. Next is the announcement for the God's Eye special admission slot. Contestant number 5 Fert. Gray's paper burst into blue flames. He became the center of attention. Staring at the flame, Gray was incredulous. I passed. The crowd began to whisper. Most of them were sarcastic. The God's Eye special admission went to a guy like this. The other successful candidates jeered. Isn't that just a backdoor admission? Man, this academy has really gone downhill. Ray was distracted. Backdoor, I don't know anyone here. Could it be my master? But I haven't heard anything. An old man leaning on a cane stepped forward and scolded them. Hey, don't talk nonsense about the God's Eye special admission. It's a prestigious category that has produced heroes for 100 years. They paid no attention. These old guys are obsessed with God's Eye. Isn't that just a story from the old days? Another person said. The recent God's Eye picks have all been failures. Amy Whitebell, Jacob Bloom. Ray stood silently enduring the taunts. A whole bunch of failures. Even the current students know it. But the names Amy, Whitebell, and Jacob Bloom sparked a glimmer of hope. They were the main force against the Lich King. Now my name is being mentioned alongside theirs. A gentle dawn broke over the academy. Everything was bathed in a quiet light. The main building rose majestically through a thin mist. The surrounding canal flowed peacefully. A bustling crowd moved in as a loudspeaker announcement came on. The opening ceremony will begin in 30 minutes. If you have finished changing, please gather at the plaza in front of the main office. Groups of students in dark blue uniforms with gold trim appeared on the path. The academy's crest sparkled silver on their left chests. Amid the crowd, Ray walked calmly, exuding a cool, enigmatic aura. A few students gathered, looking around awkwardly. This is the plaza in front of the main office, right? One boy asked softly. His friend replied, What's the big deal? Are we even in the right place? Suddenly, a figure ran up, panting heavily. Sorry, there was a mix-up, so the preparations are delayed. A student asked, Preparations? The man continued, Could you please step back a bit so I can set up the stage? Everyone looked at each other confused, but stepped back as requested. Is this far enough? The man turned back and smiled. That's perfect. Amid the confusion, he knelt, placed his hands on the ground, and muttered, All right. A radiant magic circle enveloped the area. Intricate magical lines intertwined, glowing with a brilliant golden light like an exploding sun. Streaks of orange-red lightning shot through the light, creating an intense, supernatural feeling. The ground trembled. The air seemed to be compressed by an immense energy. The crowd stared in awe at the power that was beyond their comprehension. In a moment, everything vanished, and the sky was as clear as after a storm. The man stood up calmly. Sorry for the delay. You can all sit wherever you like. The students were still stunned, their lips trembling. Yes, sir. They glanced around. One person asked, bewildered, Was that a teleportation spell just now? Right. Another gritted their teeth. They teleported something this big. Ray sat down, thinking to himself, They must want to hold the opening ceremony somewhere with a clear view of the school. Using a teleportation spell for this is such a waste. He turned his head and smiled brightly. This is the power of the World Union Academy. He noticed two people talking. Aren't there a few too many chairs? Only 30 students were accepted. Why so many seats? The short-haired girl chuckled. You don't know. The other girl felt offended. Sorry, besides swordsmanship, I don't know much else. The short-haired girl smiled. Let me explain. She twirled her finger rhythmically. The World Union Academy, just as its name suggests, is where the best students from all over the world gather. She exclaimed, Look, they're here. The other girl jumped, her eyes widening as she followed the pointing finger. In the blue sky, massive airships glided through the clouds. Their sleek hulls reflected the morning light. The full sails caught the wind like majestic flying warships. Between the airships were giant dragons, soaring with outstretched wings. Their bodies were colossal. She shouted, What is this? The airships remained imposing and majestic. Ray stared in astonishment. The magical airship Socha Queen. I was on it once when I joined the Purger Extermination Squad. I heard. It's one of the largest airships in the world. And yet they bring it out just for an opening ceremony. He thought, truly worthy of the name World Union Academy. The airships landed, kicking up dust everywhere. A group of people with stern faces walked in. The headmaster happily rested his hands on the podium. It seems everyone has arrived. Well then, let's begin the opening ceremony. The loudspeaker blared, Thank you, headmaster, for your speech. Ray crossed his arms and yawned. So the opening ceremony is pretty normal after all. He was surprised to hear a name called. Next, we will have a greeting from the valedictorians of each department. Leon Hart, valedictorian of the swordsmanship department, please come up and speak. Leon stood up and bowed politely. Yes. He walked down amidst murmurs of praise. He defeated the examiner in a single blow. I heard his swordsmanship is on par with the instructor's. Leon bowed deeply, placing a hand on his chest. Greetings, professors. I am Leon Hart. Truly an outstanding student. His face exuded a serious demeanor. Ray sighed pensively. Leon asked politely, May I have the freedom to speak my mind? The professor smiled. Of course. Thank you. Leon turned sharply to the students. I have something to say. First of all, congratulations to all who were admitted through the proper channels. It is an honor to be enrolled with all of you. He placed a hand on his chest, showing his goodwill. To graduate and contribute to the world, let us strive together. I look forward to the days we will advance further in this prestigious academy. But unfortunately, among us there is one who is unworthy of being here. Isn't that right, God's Eye, Professor Ariel? Ariel, who had been enjoying the atmosphere with her eyes closed, flinched when her name was called, but she quickly regained her composure. All the students here have passed a rigorous exam. Even if they are not as strong as you, it would be unreasonable to exclude them. Why do you ask me such a thing? Leon's face hardened, his eyes filled with indignation. I'm not talking about those who passed fairly. I'm talking about the student who was handpicked by the professor for the God's Eye admission. He shouted, pointing at the crowd of students. Step forward, return your uniform, and leave this academy at once. The students stirred. Ray worried, why so tense? Good thing he doesn't know my face. If I sit quietly, he probably won't find me. Ariel laughed out loud. This year's freshmen are quite lively. Leon said indignantly, Professor, I'm being serious. Please stop these backdoor admissions. A whoosh cut through the air like the wind. Ariel appeared behind Leon and whispered, Do you think you're stronger than that student? Leon shouted, What, of course? Am I wrong? Ariel smiled, amused. I like that attitude. In that case, let's make a bet. Leon was surprised. A bet? Ariel crossed her arms calmly, her lips curling into a confident smirk. I'll bet my entire professorship and his admission slot on it. Ray was taken aback by her words. He choked slightly. A bet? Leon didn't understand either. He asked the professor, Are you going to make me fight that specially admitted kid? Ariel didn't even open her eyes. She waved her hand. I wouldn't do something so disadvantageous. She adjusted her glasses and looked straight at Leon. Besides, if he went all out, you'd die. As a teacher, I can't let a student be put in danger. A vein bulged on Leon's forehead. He glared angrily. Are you provoking me? Ariel remained calm. I'm being serious. So let's bet on monsters instead of people. It's safer. She paused, then continued. Besides, you're better at fighting monsters than people, aren't you? Leon grew even angrier. So you know me well, huh? So what's the exact bet? Ariel gave a faint smile as if she'd achieved her goal. A hand was raised. She said simply, It's just killing the monster I choose as the target. Professor Ariel introduced the rules for each round. Each round the monster will be stronger. The first one who fails to kill the target loses. Ray, sitting on his chair, rubbed his head helplessly as Ariel continued, If he loses, I will resign and all specially admitted students will be expelled. If you lose, you must do everything I say. Leon's defiant expression was reflected in Ariel's glasses. She acted as if nothing was wrong, extending a hand to Leon. So, he touched the sword at his hip. Tell me the targets first. Even though I'm confident I can handle any opponent, I don't want to fall into some stupid trap. Ariel put a hand to her chin, considering. Let's see, for the first target, how about a goblin general? Or is that too easy for you? The students in the hall were surprised. Ray crossed his arms, thinking carefully, a goblin general. Why did she pick that one specifically? In contrast, Leon slammed the table in anger. Are you kidding me? Sweat beaded on his forehead. A goblin general isn't the kind of monster one person can take down alone. Ariel chuckled lightly. I never said to kill it right away. The deadline is within this year. That's reasonable. Right, Leon shouted. If you could take down a disaster-class monster alone after just 1 year of training, by yourself, people wouldn't struggle so much. Choose a more realistic target. He paused, panting, then smiled, clenching his fists. You're deliberately choosing a monster no one can defeat, so that no one can win. Right, I don't agree. Ariel stepped closer. Then let's add a condition. If it's a draw, you win. Leon was surprised. Huh, Ariel continued. In other words, if that kid can't take down the goblin general, I will be automatically dismissed, and the specially admitted student will be expelled. She winked playfully. How about it? Leon, aghast, confirmed, Are you crazy? I feel like the outcome of this bet is already decided. But Ariel turned to leave, still smiling. Then I'll take that as you not objecting. Leon added a condition. It has to be an undamaged goblin general, not one that's been weakened. Ariel raised her hand. A stream of light appeared. With a wave of her hand, a pen and a blank sheet of paper materialized. I've written the details into this magical contract. The contract floated in the air. If there are no problems, sign it. Leon read it carefully, then put pen to paper. I'm in. He added, but do you really believe that kid can win? Ariel, uninterested, turned to leave. Who knows? Ariel calmly returned to her seat. The hall buzzed with whispers about the professor's contract. What's wrong with Professor Ariel? Maybe she's using the bet as an excuse to retire. She's been past her prime for a long time. Ariel ignored the taunts, smiling as she looked at the contract. Ray sighed helplessly. Great, the bet has officially begun. He opened his eyes, considering. Wait a minute. Why do I get the feeling she's including the one I already defeated? Before enrolling in this bet, the deadline is within this year. Ariel noticed Ray's intense stare. Ray thought this bet was decided from the very beginning. Ariel brought her index finger to her lips, signaling for him not to reveal the truth. Ray marveled she plays dirty. The teacher on the podium calmly began. Now we will begin our introductory lesson on magic. He placed a book on the table. Some of you may be surprised that the lecture is starting on the very first day. But as students of this academy, you must remember not to waste a single day. He raised a hand which glowed with blue light. Let's begin with how to use magic. The teacher continued to lecture on magic. Within the body exists an invisible energy source called ether. By channeling it through your magic circuits, you can... The teacher lectured intently. The students listened seriously. Ray thought, I was worried I wouldn't keep up, but this is fine. I already learned this stuff at the training camp. He looked at the blonde person sitting in the front row, in the same class as him again. I could have chosen a different class. He rested his cheek on his hand, bored. Please don't let anyone find out I'm the God's Eye special admission student. A voice cut through his thoughts. Hey, you there, you look bored. It hasn't even been 5 minutes and you're already looking away. Ray stammered, I'm sorry. He thought to himself, he spotted me with just a glance even though I'm sitting all the way in the back. The professor closed his book. If you're that confident, why don't you show the class? I assume you know basic magic. Ray stood up flustered. Sir, we're in the swordsmanship course. I thought it was okay not to know magic. The professor reminded him, even if you only use a sword in battle, you still need to know basic magic to coordinate with mages. You must understand the feeling of controlling ether. Yes, sir. Ray was a bit stunned. Just like in the training camp. He asked, the spell we're about to learn is Ether Bullet, right? The teacher returned to the podium. Oh, you know it. Can you use it? Ray replied. Yes. He sighed in relief. That hellish training camp wasn't for nothing. The teacher said, this is a good opportunity. We'll turn this into a match. Leon, you can use Ether Bullet, right? Leon stood up. Of course, sir. I was trained in both swordsmanship and magic. Before enrolling. Isn't it risky to have him actually fight you? The teacher was firm. Even with the large skill gap, we're only using Ether Bullet. He won't die. And I'm not telling you to go easy on him, he added. But that gray-haired boy is this year's God's Eye special admission student. Leon was taken aback. Ah! The entire class turned to look at Gray with surprised eyes. Gray was flustered by the attention. He just outed me completely. Leon slammed the table. So that's it. In that case, I'll have to teach him a proper lesson. He looked at Gray and growled, get on the floor. Ray was speechless. The two of them stepped onto the podium facing each other. The professor stood between them explaining the rules. When I give the signal, fire an ether bullet at your opponent. Ray was cautious. I've only studied magic for a few days. Even if the teacher says I won't die, I probably won't come out of this unscathed. The professor shouted, begin. Leon summoned his magic, challenging. I'll show you the difference in our power. Ray didn't back down, trying to summon his best magic. Screw it, I have no other choice. 2 orbs of power flew towards their opponents. Suddenly, both went out. A stream of light began to move, charging straight at Leon, forcing him to retreat, dodging by a hair's breadth. Leon panicked, his eyes wide. He screamed in terror as the light drew closer, its power threatening to swallow him whole. Suddenly, a man rushed forward, spreading his arms to shield him. His face showed unshakable resolve amidst the intense light. Instantly, the space lit up as bright as day. The professor stood there almost stunned, only able to stare blankly at the scene before him. He almost sighed in relief, his trembling hand wiping the beads of sweat from his forehead. His heart was still pounding with shock. The stream of light began to shatter. Large cracks appeared amid the blinding patches of light. Suddenly, a young man without a trace of fear decisively jumped straight into the center of the light. A strong gust of wind swept by as he appeared, causing the audience in the hall to tremble involuntarily and shield their faces. Their hearts pounded at the intense sight. The young man knelt, shielding himself from the blue light, his eyes burning with the self-sacrificing spirit. But in less than 5 minutes, he collapsed onto the floor, screaming in pain. The man immediately rushed over like the wind, asking worriedly, Leon, are you okay? Leon trembled, looking up at the person before him. He struggled to sit up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and whispered, "I'm fine." His voice was weak but full of resilience. The man didn't ask further, just nodded. "Is that so? What a relief." But his eyes remained sharp. He scanned the room with high alert. If it weren't for the force-dampening barrier, Leon probably wouldn't have survived. The room below was in ruins. A thick cloud of dust covered everything. The oppressive air weighed down on everyone. Not even the professors? Can fire an e-bullet that powerful? The man tilted his head, his voice tinged with anger. "What did you just do?" The young man didn't answer right away, just looked down at his own hand. He frowned in thought. Was it that weak? That definitely wasn't the spell I used. His pupils contracted, his mind in turmoil. Could it be that the e-bullet I learned in the suppression squad is different from what the academy teaches? He clenched his fist, his eyes red with anger. Then he raised his hand to his chest. He asked respectfully, "Did I use the wrong spell?" The man sighed helplessly and replied, "That was definitely an e-bullet. But the quality of yours is different. What you just used wasn't ordinary E. It was supercompressed E in sphere form, a form of powerful energy, hidden within a brilliant ball of light." His words sent a ripple through the auditorium. Murmurs of awe and wonder arose. Supercompressed E? Never heard of it. Everyone started asking questions. All eyes were fixed on the young man. The man continued, his voice full of authority. "That is a form of energy that even the professors find difficult to create. And yet you, in that instant, formed it and turned it into a spell. No one at this academy can replicate what you just did." As soon as he finished, the room erupted in endless chatter again. "That's the first time I've ever seen an e-bullet that strong." Could it be that the Divine Eye special admission was to prepare for this moment? The young man thought to himself, "They should have put me in the magic course from the start, instead of giving me a special admission." He questioned himself, full of conflict. All the spells the suppression squad taught were like this. I'm still way worse than many others on the team. I'm always the first to fall in every match. He asked with a serious face, "Are you kidding me, sir?" The professor replied in a firm voice, "Anyone can do it with the right training." The corners of his mouth turned up in a mysterious smile. The young man Ray was dumbfounded, not understanding his meaning. The professor let out a hearty laugh. His eyes crinkled, making Gray freeze in confusion, not knowing what was happening. Suddenly, the professor leaned in close with a serious offer. "How about you transfer to the magic course? I will vouch for you. You have a far greater aptitude for magic than swordsmanship." Ray looked away embarrassed. He clenched his fist. "I have to refuse. I heard I'm not very good at magic." The professor shouted, his voice full of outrage. "Are you kidding me? You've mastered the E-compression technique to the point of creating super-compressed E at this age. You are a rare genius even by the Academy's standards. I personally guarantee it. Whoever told you that you have no talent clearly knows nothing." He paused, his voice lowering. "Ray, are you sure you don't want to transfer to the magic course?" The entire auditorium gasped. They were astonished by the rare praise from the notoriously strict professor. He pointed directly at Gray, his voice deadly serious. "It would be a great loss to the world if you don't study magic. I would even call it a crime against magic itself." Gray just gave a slight smile, his heart filled with mixed emotions. Suddenly he was startled, thinking, "Wait a minute. E-compression technique. I've heard of that before. In the old days, before people knew about Ode, it was very difficult to manifest magic with life force. You had to compress E inside your body, mixing it with Ode somewhat randomly." Bella suddenly spoke up. "Thinking back, that's pretty ridiculous. Isn't it?" Ray continued. "Professor, do you know about Ode?" He thought for a moment, then asked back, "What is Ode?" Seeing his reaction, Ray was shocked to realize that the present world didn't know about Ode. "What I learned in the suppression squad comes from the future." His eyes widened, his heart pounded. "I have to be careful. I can't reveal this carelessly." He clenched his fists, his eyes burning with determination. The man asked again, "So do you want to transfer to the magic course?" Ray bowed his head respectfully and replied, "I'm sorry. I don't love swordsmanship, but I'm grateful for the offer. I must still refuse." He sighed. "If that's your choice, I can't force you." He held out his hand. "If you change your mind, come find me anytime." His voice was warm. Ray scratched his head and smiled. "Thank you very much, sir." He pointed to the stands. "Go back to your seat. I won't blame you if you're inattentive in class, or even if you leave because you're bored. This lecture is too basic for you." As soon as he said that, the whole auditorium was stunned. The crowd whispered, in awe, at Professor Carlos's high praise for Gray. As he walked away, and someone pulled his hem, their voice awkward yet warm. "Sir Gray," he flinched. "What is this chilling sensation? Why do I get the shivers around her?" Ray was summoned to the office. He strode through the empty hallway holding a letter in his hand. He was filled with doubt. "Is Professor Carlos trying to convince me to switch courses again?" He stood before an exquisitely carved wooden door. He hesitated, rereading the letter. He knocked. A voice from inside called out, "Ray, is that you? It's not locked." He bowed his head and entered. "Pardon the intrusion." Suddenly, a figure lunged at him. Reacting instantly, Gray drew his sword and stabbed forward without hesitation. A terrified girl, her mouth agape, fell to the floor. He held his stance, stunned. "What the hell?" He looked at the girl, trembling at the tip of his sword. He was startled. "Where have I seen her before?" The girl looked up. Her eyes, a mix of fear and curiosity, made Gray's heart skip a beat. A voice from the side spoke full of admiration. "Oh, not bad at all." Ariel smiled confidently. "I knew my judgment wasn't wrong." The man with the parted hair turned to Bella, his voice questioning. "You didn't hold back just now. Were you saving your strength?" He observed with a sharp gaze. "Her movements were perfect. But to lose your sword that easily? It's not natural at all." Ray unconsciously glanced at Bella. He thought to himself, so it really is Bella Upright. Looking at her now, she's exactly like the image in my future memories. Ariel couldn't be bothered. She scoffed. Her voice was full of contempt. "Seriously, if you can't even figure that out, maybe you should just quit teaching." The man with the parted hair stammered nervously. We were just joking." Gray was still bewildered, caught between confusion and curiosity. He spoke up, his voice hesitant. "Professor, what are you all doing?" Ariel beamed. She explained, "We made a bet to see if you could block Bella's surprise attack. Thanks to you, I won big." She tossed an object toward Gray. He caught it deftly. Opening his hand, his eyes lit up in surprise. A gold coin. "This is a fortune." Finally, old man Remep has to admit it. He had been watching the match intently. His eyes never left Gray. "From that last exchange," Remep commented, "it looks like he was intentionally not using his dominant hand." The bearded man nodded in analysis. "Perhaps an injury, but not a typical muscle injury. It's a deeper wound." Gray clutched his aching arm. He silently admitted to himself that what they were saying was completely true. The other man agreed. A simple wound? Couldn't have affected him like that. Gray looked at them in disbelief. "You can tell just by looking." The bearded man replied as if it were obvious. "If we couldn't even notice that much, how could we be professors at this academy?" The man with the parted hair added. "Anyway, Professor, Ariel has known about this since the entrance exam." Ariel cut in coldly. "You understand now, leave." "He is my student. I'm not handing him over to anyone." The two men turned and left. The man with the parted hair left a compliment behind. "We admit he has potential," but the bearded man's gaze was sharp as he passed by. "If that wound doesn't heal, he won't meet the Academy's admission standards. Remember that." The room now held only Professor Ariel, Bella, and Gray. Ariel spoke, her voice exuding an air of mystery. "Now that the nuisances are gone, let's talk about magic." She looked at Gray with a sharp gaze. "I heard you used a super compressed E in Professor Carlos's class." Ray didn't hide it. "So you already know?" Ariel replied. "He came to my office, told me to transfer you to the magic department. But of course I refused." Ariel paused, then revealed her other eye. It shone as bright as a star. "You're better suited for swordsmanship than magic." Seeing that eye for the first time, Ray couldn't help but be stunned. Ariel explained meticulously. "You show no signs of someone skilled in mana compression. Not a single indication of having ever trained in it." Ray thought to himself, "That eye can tell just by looking. Better not to lie." He said honestly, "You're right." Ariel delved deeper, curious about her student. "May I ask, and what method you used?" "I promise not to tell, and I'll even give you a reward." She glanced at Bella, as if the two shared a secret. "I need to know." "Because of that girl?" Gray misspoke, but stopped in time, sighing in relief. "Almost called her a mage." Ariel looked at Bella's pained expression. She shared, "That's right. She's a genius in magical theory. But her practical application is not yet outstanding." Ariel was troubled, worried. "I don't understand why she can't compress E well." "That's why she can't create super compressed E," Ray observed Bella, remembering what he knew. "I heard Bella Upright was a late bloomer, so this is why." Ariel continued. "Carlos said that when you used a super compressed E, it didn't look like you were compressing E at all. If there's a way to use super compressed E without compressing E, and she won't be transferred to Professor Vagyan Ballet." Hearing that name, Gray's face turned pale, his eyes filled with horror. "Professor Vagyan Ballet," he said excitedly. "Is it really him?" Ariel nodded. "Yes, it seems you know of him." Gray's mind was in chaos. "Of course I know him. He's infamous everywhere." Memories flooded back, piles of bodies at Vagyan's feet. Countless experiments on human bodies. A town burned to the ground. Dozens dead from a magical disaster. To Gray, Vagyan Ballet was no different from a serial killer. He exclaimed, "He's the most notorious magical criminal in history. He still hasn't been caught." Ariel worried, if Bella can't create super compressed E by the end of the year, She'll be transferred to him for surgery. Gray was horrified and couldn't sit still. What that's not right at all. Ariel predicted Bella's tragic fate. Even under the pretext of enhancing magical abilities, it's still human experimentation. I've seen the bodies dead with their eyes still open from injustice. She paused, her voice firm. I'd rather let her drop out than let that man touch Bella. After a moment of silence, Bella spoke, her voice trembling. This is really dangerous. But if I can't use super compressed E, I'll be expelled. Gray's eyes grew pensive, his heart heavy. The magical knowledge I have comes from the future. It doesn't exist in this era yet. If I speak of it, I could change history. He looked at the trembling Bella. Gray's gaze was like a curse on fate. A future destroyed by the purger. Warriors falling in an instant. Is that the future I want? He softened, putting down his teacup, his voice determined. I understand. I'll teach you. A sphere of dark magic appeared from Gray's hand. In front of the Ina schoolyard, everyone listened silently and attentively as he explained magic. Gray was honest. This is everything I know. He said sternly, don't tell anyone I taught you this. Ariel was playful. Of course. We even signed a magical contract. Break the rules and you die. Ray reassured asked, after what I've said, what do you think? Even as a professor, Ariel was stunned. The part about Ode alone left me astonished. Bella absorbed it quickly, excitedly. Concise and tight, like taking a magic class from 100 years in the future. She said sincerely, just hearing you explain it, it's like the history of magic has advanced 100 years. Ray was pleased but not conceited. Even though that's my lecture from 15 years in the future, for this era it's like it's a century ahead. Ariel was skeptical. Is what you're saying true? Bella placed her trust in it. The theory is very sound. It doesn't contradict current magic. The fastest way to verify it is to test it. She looked at Gray with anticipation. If you're telling the truth, this spell will work. Bella left the papers and stepped forward. According to the theory, Bella raised her wand, creating a magic circle. Ray hesitated, remembering Bella's full power. Upright could incinerate an entire city. In the blink of an eye, the magic circle expanded, enveloping the space. Bella once couldn't control her immense magical power. Before Ray could stop her, his body began to fade. Wait! From the schoolyard, a torrent of magic erupted like a volcano. It left everyone stunned by its terrifying power. Ray raised a hand to cover his face, muttering to himself. This is her true power. It's too overwhelming, too terrifying. He was still trembling as he recalled the moment that if Bella had been even a split second late in controlling her magic, he probably would have been vaporized in those flames. Luckily, she had saved his life. He remembered the scene of ferocious flames rushing towards him, then suddenly reversing and swirling towards Bella, as if controlled by an unseen force. Bella now wore a radiant smile, her eyes sparkling with joy. She cheered, I did it. I controlled it. In the sky, the flames were spiraling in a perfect orbit, gradually converging at a single point. From there, a brilliant fire dragon emerged, soaring through the air. The crimson light illuminated the entire area. Seeing the spectacle, Ray smiled faintly and whispered, that's seriously next level. But just then Bella's gaze suddenly went blank. Her eyes closed and her body swayed as if about to fall. She whispered weakly, I'm out of anger now. Before she could finish, she collapsed to the ground. Panicked Ray rushed to catch her, calling her name, Bella, Bella. Ariel, standing nearby, hurried over, her voice reassuring. Calm down, Ray. She's just exhausted from running out of anger. Let her rest for a bit and she'll be fine. Hearing this, Ray sighed in relief, his gaze softening as he looked at Bella. He felt a warmth in his heart, mixed with pride seeing this small girl achieve the impossible. Looking at the remaining embers in the sky, Ariel exclaimed, truly astonishing. In such a short time, Bella has created magic on this scale. Her talent is truly rare. Bella, though still dazed, managed to mumble. It's not me that's good. It's the theory. The theory helped me create super compressed eager. Ray frowned slightly, thinking to himself, you're the one who came up with that theory, Bella. How can you still be so modest? But he didn't say it out loud. He just looked at her quietly with eyes full of admiration. Ariel sighed and turned to Gray. She managed to create super compressed eager. That means no more surgery. I'll inform Bradley to cancel the procedure. Thankfully, we avoided that risk. But then she grew pensive, her voice tinged with worry. Still, I'm worried Bella might lose control of her magic. Ray asked in surprise. Control of her magic? What do you mean? Ariel explained. Bradley's surgery can increase magical output, but the price is the ability to control it. It forcibly breaks the body's limits. And the exact mechanism is still a secret, but it's said to be a very risky process. Ray stroked his chin deep in thought. I see. Is that why the mages in the previous world couldn't control their powerful magic of theirs? Ariel nodded, then suddenly smiled. But thanks to you, Bella has done the impossible and created super compressed agar. So the condition of our contract is fulfilled. Now it's my turn to do my part. She looked at Gray's right arm and continued. First, I want to use a magic on your arm. Ariel raised her hand. A brilliant blue light emanated from her palm. Tiny magical butterflies fluttered around, shimmering like a dream. She approached and channeled that magic into Gray's right arm. After a moment, Ariel asked, "How do you feel?" Ray looked down at his arm. He tried gently clenching and unclenching his fist. He exclaimed in astonishment, I can move it!" Overjoyed, he squeezed his fist tightly. He looked at Ariel with grateful eyes. "Thank you, Professor. But even magical recovery potions couldn't heal it." "How did you do this?" Ariel smiled. "Don't compare my nerve restoration magic with some common potions." She stepped closer and asked further, "But does it move like before? Try using your sword." Ray nodded and stepped forward. He gripped the hilt of his sword. He drew it and swung a few basic strikes. But then he stopped. He looked at his arm. He thought to himself, it doesn't feel as fluid as before. He said frankly, "My arm isn't back to how it was." Ariel nodded, not surprised. "Just as I thought. I can heal the nerves, but my magic cannot heal the wound in your soul." Ray was surprised. "My soul, what do you mean?" Ariel explained. "Although magical, as science has not proven the existence of the soul, I believe it is real. With this eye." She pointed to her eye from which a dazzling light flashed. "I can see that your soul is gradually recovering. As long as you don't overexert yourself, it will heal on its own over time." Ray looked at his arm and mused. "My body is recovering." He then asked, "Do you mean I shouldn't train too hard?" Ariel shook her head. "No, you can still train normally. But I'm curious. What kind of swordsmanship can damage the soul?" "To this extent—" Ray scratched his head shyly and didn't answer. Ariel continued, her voice lowering. "There are sword styles that use the soul to perform techniques, and I suspect you learn from Army White." Hearing that name, Ray flinched, his expression hardening. He thought to himself, how does she know Army at this point in time? Army and I have never met. Seeing him silent, Ariel asked, "Did I say something wrong?" "The way you use your sword is very similar to Army White, but with a slight difference. The person who taught you seems to surpass even her." Ray was slightly startled, his heart racing. "She knows about that too. I have to change the subject or I'll slip up." He quickly said, I learned swordsmanship at a dojo in my hometown. "But is there really a sword style that harms the soul?" Ariel waved her hand. "No ordinary swordsmanship can't do that. But you're not ordinary. A single sword strike that killed General Orosi and destroyed the entire surrounding forest. That kind of power is not something trivial." Knowing he had been exposed, Ray had to admit, "So you already knew." Ariel was nonchalant. "Of course, I surveyed the scene. The devastation left behind was impressive. That mysterious power within you. You used it, didn't you?" Ray was amazed. "You can see it!" Professor Ariel nodded. "I see it through a chained door." Ray flinched, thinking to himself, a chained door. No way, she guessed it. Did she really see it? Ariel continued. "I have seen power similar to yours before, but not exactly the same. There are those who possess it. They are called purgers." Hearing that name, Gray's face darkened. He mumbled, "Why is that name appearing here?" Ariel noticed the change. She asked, "You've heard this name before, haven't you?" A torrent of chaotic thoughts rushed through Gray's mind. He wondered, why is the name Purger appearing at this point in time? What is going on? "Looking at your expression," Ariel spoke up, "so you've heard about it." "To be honest, I didn't think it was that widely known. But then again, considering you know about future magical theories, it's not too surprising." He felt a bit embarrassed, scratching his head in thought. "So it really is knowledge from the future, no matter who discovered that part." Then she looked at him and asked, "How much do you know about the Purger?" He paused for a few seconds, then answered, "I only know that it is an extremely dangerous threat to humanity. He must be stopped from appearing before it's too late. If that's not possible, then he must be destroyed at all costs." Ariel stroked her chin thoughtfully for a few seconds, then spoke. "That might be a bit extreme, but I agree that he is indeed very dangerous. Even so, Vagyan Ballet seems determined to continue his experiments." Hearing this name, he asked with curiosity, "How is he involved in this?" Ariel replied nonchalantly, "What else? The Purger is the very entity he is trying to summon." Her words left Gray completely stunned. He thought to himself for a few seconds. The Purger was created by humans. I've never heard anyone say that before. But the Academy in the previous timeline, it was as if they knew exactly where the Purger would appear. But then he suddenly realized something. His eyes suddenly hardened. He muttered to himself, "Don't tell me." "Our Academy was involved in the summoning from the very beginning." Then what he spoke with conviction. "That experiment must be stopped immediately." Ariel nodded in agreement. "I agree. The problem is, the head of the experiment is a professor just like me. I have no authority to shut down his research lab or prohibit his experiments. I have urged my superiors to cancel it, but they won't listen. Then he asked, superiors who specifically, she immediately shook her head, refusing to disclose. Sorry, I'm not at liberty to disclose that. The issue is without an order from a superior. No one can force the experiment to stop. He slumped down, thinking. Not even the name of the person in charge. Turns out the Academy's leadership is more complicated than usual. But if he's a criminal, wouldn't that change things? In the previous world, illegal experiments killed tens of thousands of people. I even know where he conducts his experiments. With that thought, he turned to her and spoke. I know where he conducts those illegal experiments. Experiments, if we can catch him in the act. But before he could finish his sentence, she interrupted him. I'm sorry, but that method won't work either. This made him extremely puzzled. Why not? She explained. Infiltrating a professor's research facility within the academy without a permit is a serious crime. Without concrete evidence, we would be the ones getting locked up. Or are you saying you now have evidence of his crimes? Her words made him think for a few seconds. She continued, if not, then this matter will have to be put on hold. He clenched his fists in anger, thinking to himself. So even though she knows how dangerous this is, her hands are tied. Yes, he replied, I understand. She then changed the subject. More importantly, let's talk about your power. Do you want to learn how to control it? Hearing that he could control his power made Ray flinch slightly. He raised his hand to his chest and asked, How is that possible? She replied. There's a professor at the academy who is very skilled at handling unknown abilities. His name is Hector Longfellow. The name sounded familiar, leaving Gray stunned. He thought to himself for a few seconds. Hector Longfellow. He's the one who trained the Sword Saint. Seeing his reaction, she continued. I think he would be interested in you. I will arrange for you to start private training, with him starting tomorrow. This made him incredibly excited. He clenched his fist and spoke. Thank you, he thought to himself. The whole reason I came to the academy was to master this power. I can't believe I found a lead so quickly. Scene changed to the next day. Gray was already in a training session with Hector. The two were playing a game of cat and mouse in the forest. Hector ran ahead while Gray had to chase from behind. He was sweating profusely from exhaustion. Breathing heavily, he thought to himself, Am I really getting private lessons with Hector Longfellow? But why do we have to run like this? They were training in the forest, just outside the academy. Glancing back and seeing Gray's pace slowing, Hector called out a reminder. Your spirit is wandering. I can feel it. If you still have room for stray thoughts, then pick up the pace. Run until your body is completely depleted. Only when you have burned through every last drop of physical vitality will the power of the soul awaken. As long as you have a bit of stamina left, I won't let you touch my sword. Do you understand? Although he still didn't understand this training method, he still nodded in response. Yes, sir, he thought to himself. If this is Hector's training, there must be a purpose to it. But while I'm running in circles here, Vagyan is still proceeding with the experiment to summon the purger. Two conflicting thoughts appeared in his mind, leaving him very conflicted. Should I be doing this right now? After a week of grueling training, he went to see Ariel. She looked at him and said, So a week of training has passed. How are things going with Hector? He scratched his head and replied, Actually, it's mostly been running. We only did a little sword practice at the end of the session, but I feel a little stronger. This training method was not unfamiliar to Ariel. It made her smile with amusement. That sounds just like him. While the two were talking from outside, a teacher pushed the door in and spoke. Excuse me, he said, presenting a letter. Professor Ariel, there's a letter for you. She took the letter and replied, Oh, thank you. She immediately opened the letter and skimmed it. Then her expression suddenly darkened. This made Gray very curious, and he asked, Is something wrong? Then he took the letter and read it. His eyes also froze for a few seconds. The letter read, Dear Professor Ariel, we have received a report that Bella Upright has successfully created supercompressed E, meaning she has truly obtained a power similar to it. However, after a clear examination, she has not actually compressed it. Therefore, her new ability cannot be recognized as super compressed E. The contract is still in effect, and the operation will proceed as planned. Signed Vagyan. Ballet. After reading the letter, Gray shouted angrily, This is insane! Realizing his intention, Ariel spoke up. It seems Vagyan Ballet is still determined to force her into surgery, even though she may not need it anymore. He asked, Can't she refuse? Ariel replied, Unfortunately, the contract is ironclad, unless Vagyan Ballet himself cancels it. Otherwise, Bella can only choose between expulsion or undergoing the surgery. These ridiculous rules made Gray furious. Ariel felt the same way. She slammed her hand on the table angrily and said, Gray, I need your help. Show me where Vagyan Ballet's laboratory is. If we expose his criminal activities, the contract will be voided. Hearing this, he was stunned for a few seconds. Then the corners of his mouth curved into an excited smile. "Didn't you say it would be dangerous without evidence?" She let out a soft sigh and replied, "We'll find the evidence for me. I'm putting my trust in you. Or maybe I believed you from the very beginning. My eyes have been telling me that you've been telling the truth this whole time. It just took me some time to admit it." Then she turned and walked towards the door, saying, "Lead the way, Gray. We'll expose his crimes together." He then revealed the location of Vagyan Balay's lab. His lab is in the mountain range near the village of Toro. "Is that so?" Ariel repeated. "Toro. I remember clearly. He has an academy-approved laboratory there." This made Gray very curious. He's conducting illegal experiments, right inside an approved lab. She nodded in confirmation. What better place to conduct illegal work? Even if he stays there for a long time, no one would suspect a thing. Besides, no professor at the academy would interfere with another's laboratory. As long as we find evidence of his crimes, no one will blame us for breaking in. "Bella." A knock came from outside the door. The person outside said, "It's me, Bella." Hearing this, Ariel replied, "Come in." Bella entered holding a letter in her hand. "Professor, I received this letter." She then walked over and took the letter. Knowing exactly what was written inside, she turned to leave, offering reassurance. "Don't worry, I'll handle this." Bella asked, puzzled, "What do you mean?" Then she asked, "Professor, are you planning to confront Vagyan Balay for me?" "All by yourself." She pondered for a few seconds, then turned back with a smile. "I am more than enough." Hearing this still made Bella extremely worried. She looked over at Gray. Bella stood beside him. Then he stepped forward and said, "Please wait a moment. I'm coming with you." Bella stepped up from behind, her voice firm. "Me too. After all, this is my problem." She turned back and warned them. "Hold on, he's a professor at the academy. Not to mention he's a maniac who has repeatedly conducted these dangerous human experiments. If he catches either of you, there's no telling what he'll do. I can't let you two risk going there." Before she could finish, Gray stepped forward to reassure her. "That's exactly why going alone is even more dangerous. If I use the same power that took down the orc, General, I can surely help you in some way. Besides, if I disappear as a student, under the Divine Eye special admission, I'll be expelled. So please let us decide our own fates." Their determined gazes reflected in her glasses. She sighed helplessly and replied, "It seems no matter how much I try to stop you, you two will come along anyway." "Very well then, but you have to promise me one thing. No matter what happens, you must put your own safety first. Do you two understand?" Ray and Bella replied in unison, "Yes, we understand." Just like that time passed quickly. The three of them had made their way to Vagyan Balay's laboratory. Looking at the massive building before them, Bella was the first to speak. "Is he really conducting illegal experiments here?" Hearing this, the female professor nodded and replied, "That's right. Now we're going to look for evidence, right?" His eyes were fixed on the laboratory ahead. He nodded and replied, "Right, this is definitely the place." Bella said, "If you say so, then I'll trust you. But can we gather evidence without causing any trouble?" Ariel added. "Vagyan Balay is currently at a Magic Society conference. He's not here. The main door is most likely trapped, so we'll have to break through the side wall to get in." This made Bella very curious. "Is that really okay?" Ray replied, "Breaking into an approved laboratory is already a crime, so it doesn't matter. If you two change your minds, you can go back." Bella tightened her grip on her staff, her voice determined. "I'm going." Then the young girl turned to ask her, "Are you absolutely sure about this? Are you doing all this just for someone like me?" Ray, standing beside her, explained, "Wrong. Stopping his experiments is for the sake of the whole world. Otherwise, countless people will have to die. No, the entire world will be sacrificed by him." These horrifying crimes made Bella extremely curious. "What?" Ariel reassured her. "What Gray said might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I agree that he must be stopped. So don't worry too much. We're not risking our lives just for you, Bella. All right, let's go." With that, the three of them dashed forward, very quickly. As they moved, Ariel created countless magic circles. Then countless attacks were directed at the wall in front, striking it and creating a massive, fierce explosion. It caused the surrounding smoke and dust to fly everywhere. Rocks and debris were sent flying. Looking at the recent attack, Gray frowned slightly, thinking to himself, "That was a bit over the top, haha." After that, the three of them approached to check the situation inside. But then Gray noticed something. His eyes suddenly froze and he said, "What is this?" Inside was a very large corridor. It looked like a prison, with rooms packed, side by side and surrounded by iron doors. Inside were countless people being held captive. Their condition was extremely exhausted. Blood was splattered all over the floor. Going deeper inside, Ariel observed for a while and then exclaimed, "Looks like we don't even need to look for evidence." Bella at her side exclaimed, "There's so much of it." Ariel stated firmly, "Just a glance, and I've already seen 14 types of forbidden magic. That's a serious crime in itself, not to mention the illegal human experiments, which are just as serious. Then everyone's eyes fell upon something. It was a large open space, with a magic circle in the middle. Along with that were countless candles placed around it. Ray asked, puzzled, "What is that?" "It looks like some kind of altar." Bella asked, "What should we do?" The original plan was to get the evidence and leave. But should we rescue the people locked up here? He turned his head back to remind them, "We can't stay here too long. If we delay, fate might await." Before he could finish his sentence, a voice came from behind. "Oh, were you calling for me?" A dark figure from behind had appeared out of nowhere. Bajyan Ballet slowly walked towards them. Ariel maintained a calm demeanor. She inquired, "How was your conference, Bajyan Ballet?" He calmly walked towards them. But in contrast, Gray and Bella were already in a fighting stance. He cursed under his breath, wondering, "Bajyan Ballet, why is he here at this time?" Bajyan Ballet said, "I sent a body double there. I have a more important experiment to conduct here." Ariel was very curious. "A more important experiment?" Bajyan Ballet glanced at the cells on both sides. Then he nodded in confirmation. "That's right, I've just acquired some fresh resources, so I have to take advantage of them while they're still fresh." In a room next to him at that moment, countless bodies were hung in rows inside. Then he looked at Ariel with a cold voice and said, "But I've changed my plans." This made everyone turn their stunned gazes towards him. He continued, "After all, I want materials with potential, magical power far beyond that of ordinary people. I don't know how you heard about my experiments. By what means? But surely you haven't told anyone that you came here. Right, if all of you suddenly disappeared, then no one would suspect me." "Ha ha." His crazed eyes looked at the group. "Gray." Ariel looked at him coldly. "Certain materials, you say? Don't tell me you intend to use us as lab rats." "Are you?" Bajyan Ballet spoke reassuringly. "Calm down. Your sacrifices will push the boundaries of magic to a new level. Since I can't let you leave here alive, I will make the best use of you." As soon as his words finished at that moment, a large fireball flew from the distance, flying towards his face. It left him completely stunned. Immediately after, a massive explosion erupted before everyone's eyes. Ariel surprisingly glanced over at the young girl Bella. It turned out that attack was from Bella. As the smoke and dust cleared, they were in for another surprise. Bajyan Ballet repeatedly praised, "Haha, excellent. Truly wonderful." This old man had not suffered any damage at all, because he had previously used protective magic. His voice became extremely cold. "Divine Eye Ariel still hasn't lost her touch. I never thought someone on special admission like you would be such a genius. Outstanding like this. Perhaps I should observe the Divine Eye candidates more closely. It's not that I'm impressed with that little trick of yours. An academy student daring to assassinate a professor." Bella tightened her grip on the staff in her hand, her voice firm. "I'd rather kill than be killed, even though I just missed my chance." Ariel then turned and said to everyone, "Let's retreat for now. We have the evidence in hand. Let the academy handle the rest." Just as they were about to leave, at that moment a few sparks of dark mana appeared on Balian's staff. He spoke up. "Do you think I'll just let you walk away?" Immediately he unleashed a giant sphere of magic, attacking the young girl Bella. Ariel dashed out from behind in front of the girl, using protective magic to block the recent attack. Very quickly, Ariel's eyes were highly focused, not a hint of carelessness. "Over here," Bajyan Ballet sneered. "It's useless. This is one of the fruits of my research. It is the devouring flame. It unleashes flames that consume defensive magic, and it turns that into fuel." As he spoke at that moment, on the protective magic layer of Ariel's, small cracks began to appear. Immediately after, the cracks spread even wider. Balian continued, "In theory, it cannot be stopped. Its only drawback is that it requires a few rare materials to activate." At the moment his attack was about to pierce through the magic layer, a spark of determination flashed in Ariel's eyes. She immediately created another magic shield to block the attack heading towards her. But the power of Bajyan Balay's attack was immense. It only took a few seconds. It began to create cracks in the second protective magic layer of Ariel. Ariel turned to remind Bella, "Give the magic memory box to Gray. If Hector sees it, he'll know what to do." Looking at the box in her hand, Bella thought. A few seconds later, the young girl slammed her staff hard into the ground, creating another protective spell to shield the three of them. Seeing the young girl not leaving, Ariel turned back and yelled, "What the hell are you doing? Get out of here now." Bella couldn't possibly leave in this situation. She said, "Professor, your barrier is about to break. This time let me handle it." Ariel knew, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't defeat Bajyan Ballet at this time. So she shouted, "We made a promise before we came here. If anything happens, you have to put your life first. Bajyan Balay's magic is clearly unusual. Defensive magic can't stop it. I'll buy you some time, so Before she could finish her sentence, at that moment her protective magic layer was destroyed by the dark power of Vagyan Ballet, shattered. She looked ahead with an utterly stunned expression. But from behind, Bella's encouraging voice came, "It's okay, Professor." Although that attack was incredibly powerful, this time it couldn't penetrate Bella's protective magic layer. She explained, "This magic isn't that strong. It just requires a slightly different kind of defensive magic." Seeing that they could block his attack, Vagyan Ballet shouted angrily, "Impossible! The theoretical magic formula for the devouring flame is known only to me. How could you possibly know it?" Bella spoke faintly. "Someone recently taught me a new theory. If so, this spell becomes much easier." Vagyan Ballet gritted his teeth and said, "Someone taught you. Who is he? Tell me the name of that traitor." "Tell me and I'll let you die peacefully." Bella continued, "You want to know who taught me? But that's a secret. But that person is a student of the swordsmanship department." The person she mentioned just now was Gray, and she had pieced it together herself after countless failures. Seeing that the young girl had no intention of revealing it, Vagyan Ballet ground his teeth and said, "So you're not going to answer seriously? Very well then, burn alive for me." Holding a red magic stone in his hand, he immediately crushed it into pieces. Then countless souls were summoned, rushing forward, adding more power to his attack. At this moment, after being empowered the attack, his magic almost seemed to have a mind of its own. It transformed into a demon with a large mouth, continuously lunging towards Bella. Seeing this, Ray from behind asked about Bella. "Are you okay?" Bella replied, "I'm fine. This barrier can still hold, but..." Vagyan Ballet on the other side smiled and said, "But your mana supply won't hold, will it? With that amount of reserve, how long do you have left?" "Probably just a minute at most." Bella looked tiredly at the professor in front of her. She said, "You need to attack him now. I'm busy defending." As if understanding the young girl's intention, Ariel nodded in agreement. "I understand." Her eyes regained their determination once more. Looking at the attack in front of her, she thought to herself, "The flame looks thinner over there. I can project my magic outside the barrier." Without hesitation, she immediately stretched out her hand, firing a small bolt of magic. Then after it had passed through the magic barrier, she immediately increased its power, creating a dazzling bolt of lightning, striking directly at Vagyan Ballet. But the closer the attack got to his position, the more the lightning bolts gradually dissipated into the air, and then disappeared completely. On this side, Vagyan Ballet sneered, "You're trying to counterattack. You can't even touch me." Ray, standing at the side, observed the recent attack. He thought to himself, "If I remember correctly, Professor, Ariel's offensive magic is the weakest among the faculty. Given the nature of this flame, it's definitely absorbing her magic." Seeing that the last attack was ineffective, Bella from behind spoke wearily, "What are we going to do? I'm almost completely drained." Her eyes became listless. Her whole body trembled violently, but she still tried to grip her staff tightly to stay upright. Ariel turned back and scolded, "This is why I told you to run earlier." But then Gray suddenly stepped forward. It took the professor completely by surprise. He tightened his grip on the sword in his hand and spoke, "Leave this to me." Seeing him about to face the monster Vagyan Ballet alone made Bella extremely worried. She said, "Ray, what are you doing?" "From here, your sword can't possibly reach his position." He had already calculated it in his mind. Then he turned back and reassured them. "It's okay, I can definitely do it." Ariel asked, puzzled, "Are you sure? Using that power again could kill you. Even if you live, the arm that's being treated might not be able to recover." A confident smile spread across his lips. "Dying alone is better than all three of us dying together, right?" Watching from the outside at this moment, from the center of the attack, a hole of dazzling light appeared, as if it wanted to rush straight out. Immediately, Ray had broken through the encirclement and rushed outside. He faced Vagyan Ballet, who was standing there. Without hesitation, he decisively swung his sword. With just one blow, he was able to easily take Vagyan Balet's head. In his astonished gaze, witnessing the scene that unfolded in just a few seconds caused Bella's eyes to widen in surprise. She let out a small scream. Then Vagyan Balet's body, like a kite with a broken string, immediately collapsed to the ground. Witnessing this scene, Ariel couldn't help but be surprised. She said, "This is the first time I've witnessed it with my own eyes. But it's also too overwhelming. The slash not only sent Vagyan Ballet to the other world, but it also made the entire cellar feel like it was about to split in two. At this moment, from the ceiling above, a few pieces of rock and debris began to fall to the ground. Immediately after that was a whole slab of earth, and large rocks about to fall, causing Bella to jump and shout, "The ceiling!" Ariel immediately stepped up to solve the problem. She glanced up and praised, "Wow, what a surprise." As soon as she stepped up, countless invisible threads were created, rushing to hold the stones that were about to fall. She exclaimed, "Oh my, this is far beyond my expectations." Still, she turned to ask Ray, "Are you okay?" Right at this moment, The sword in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. Looking at his trembling hand, Ray said, "My right arm hurts a bit and it's also a little numb, but I can still move it." He immediately bent down, picked up his sword and sheathed it. Noticing this change, Ariel let out a sigh of relief. "It seems your training has paid off." Ray nodded in agreement. "It seems so. If the one who used it was me from my village days, I would have definitely passed out immediately. And when I woke up a few days later, my arm would be gone. But now it only hurts a little. Isn't that great progress? It seems those hard training days were really worth it." Noticing that his arm was no longer trembling, she paused for a few seconds, then spoke. "Thanks to you, we're still alive. But I'm sorry for making you use that power." He immediately waved his hand. "Please don't worry about it. I was the one who insisted on stopping Vigyan Ballet in the first place. She came over and said thank you. But if you can please try not to use that power for a while. Otherwise, the damage might become irreversible." He also understood the issue. His expression became somber and he replied, "I understand." From behind, Bella stepped forward shyly and said, Excuse me, was that magic just now?" "I couldn't feel any anger at all. In fact, trying to explain that power as magic is impossible." Not wanting this to be revealed, Ariel immediately interrupted. "I'm sorry, but I hope you don't ask any more about this. And please don't tell anyone what you saw today." This made Bella very curious. "Why?" Ariel explained. "If you can't promise me that, then I will be forced to erase your memories of today." Ariel's firm words made the young girl Bella very scared, and she stammered, "I understand. Then shall we make a magic contract?" Then Ariel nodded in confirmation. "That's right." After that, a contract force immediately appeared in front of the two of them. Then the names of the two were signed on it for confirmation. Gray then glanced around the room and asked, "So what now? Although I'm also very worried about the experiments. But first I think we should help these people. It seems they've only been put to sleep by magic." Ariel immediately snapped her fingers and said, "Although it's not dangerous, we should still take them to the Academy's medical wing to ensure their safety." As the snap of her fingers ended, immediately from within the rooms, a mystical golden light emanated. They were enveloped by a protective barrier, Ariel explained. "I will place a protective barrier to prevent any external injuries. Now that that's done, let's continue investigating deeper inside." Looking back, this place is truly insane. The illegal experiments are being conducted everywhere I look. Almost all of them involve human sacrifice to create catalysts for magic or to enhance human magical abilities. I don't see any experiments related to the purger. Perhaps it's at another facility. Ray stroked his chin, thinking to himself, "Strange. This is the place where the event occurred. That killed tens of thousands in my old world. Could creating a normal magic catalyst really cause such a catastrophe?" Then he suddenly realized something. Wait a minute. The thing that killed everyone in my old world was miasma rising from the ground. Seeing him suddenly freeze in thought made Ariel very curious. She turned back and asked, "What's wrong?" Bella also turned and called his name. At this moment, his eyes were focused on the floor. If that's the case, could there be something else beneath this place? Then he turned to this professor and suggested, "There might be something underground. There's likely a secret passage." Following his words, Ariel scanned the floor below, but saw nothing unusual. She replied, "I don't see any hidden passages." But then she suddenly saw something. She immediately walked quickly forward and said, "Wait a minute." She approached a space and knelt down. A gleam of light flashed in her eyes. She observed something, though very faint. "But I can sense traces of short-range teleportation magic. Here. Perhaps it's a space that can only be accessed by teleportation. Based on the traces, the teleportation distance is about 300 meters. There's definitely something down here." Gray approached and asked, 300 meters underground. "So can we get there?" Ariel replied, but not with certainty. "I can also use short-range teleportation magic. Let me give it a try." She immediately snapped her fingers, creating a magic circle that appeared in front of her, like a gateway. Looking into it, she said, "If there's nothing there, then the other side of the gate will only lead to rock and dirt." They didn't hesitate, but immediately stepped inside the gate, teleporting. As soon as they stepped out of the teleportation gate, the eyes of all three suddenly became stiff, frozen at the scene before them. What is this? The space below was incredibly vast. It looked like a miniature city. It made Ariel completely surprised. "I never thought there would be such a vast space down here." Ella noticed something and said, "I can feel a huge source of anger emanating from everywhere, especially from that direction." As she said that, she pointed to a giant pillar. The special room inside was different from the other rooms. Ariel at this moment also sensed something and spoke up. "But it's not just anger. There's another kind of energy, completely different from magic leaking from that direction, and it's stronger than anything I've ever seen before." Looking at her reaction, he spoke up. "Could that other energy be She nodded in confirmation. That's right. That is the power of the purger. Next, without a moment's hesitation, the three of them quickly made their way straight towards the mysterious building, the source of the powerful energy. Upon entering, the group immediately witnessed several purple crystal pillars, accompanied by a black door, imprinted with a six-winged symbol on top. To prevent her two students from getting into danger, the female professor, Ariel, immediately stepped forward to investigate. The energy is definitely coming from here, but right now there's no sign of the purger. As she spoke, she reached out and tapped the door lightly to check. From behind the female mage, Bella quickly asked, "Are you sure we should be touching that thing?" In contrast to Bella's tension, Ariel remained calm and replied, "Calm down. This door doesn't contain any power. It's just placed here as a symbol for the ritual. You know that, right?" As she spoke, she walked behind the door, then opened it as if to prove that this door was completely safe. Next, she looked around a bit more and continued, "The power isn't inside the door, but in the magic circle around it." As she said this, the red-haired girl's gaze shifted towards the giant glass tubes filled with some kind of pink solution. It's unclear if they accidentally triggered something, but suddenly all of the glass pillars began to erupt with a violent surge of power, terrifying Gray. He quickly yelled, "What is this?" "Don't tell me it's actually summoning the purger." Standing beside him, Bella's face also contorted from the pressure. "This flow of magic is too dangerous. We have to stop it now," she commented. However, Ariel remained as calm as if nothing was happening. "Don't rush in, according to my predictions. This system isn't powerful enough to summon a purger." Before everyone's astonished eyes, suddenly, the space in front of the black door began to show countless spreading cracks. Finally, they revealed a pitch-black hole behind them. Ray and Bella were so scared witnessing this that their hearts nearly jumped out of their chests. "Space is being torn apart," they yelled. At the same time, the entire magic circle on the ground had also reached its peak energy emission level. However, afterward, the expressions on Gray's and Bella's faces became a bit confused, because although the magic circle emitted an immense aura, nothing at all happened. To explain this, Professor Ariel quickly informed them both. "These devices aren't for summoning a purger. They only drill a small rift to where it exists, and then siphon the power that leaks out from there. The energy core used to crystallize that power is very likely human life. It looks like about 10 souls were used, but during the molding process, it's possible many more were sacrificed. Perhaps most of the people captured upstairs were the materials for it." She quickly gave her assessment, but this also made the mage Bella feel confused continuously. Why would they go to such lengths just to collect 10 units of energy? What do they plan to use it for? Answering this question, Ariel just shrugged and said, "Don't you see? The inferno flame that Varian used during our fight, the amplifying crystal for that flame, is what will be created when this process is complete. Actually, the catalyst isn't limited to just the fire attribute. If they mass-produce it, who knows what they'll do with that kind of power." As she spoke, she glanced up to observe the diamond-shaped object suspended in midair. Elsewhere, the spatial rift that was created quickly closed. Seeing this, Ray spoke up. "Looks like the rifts are disappearing." So Varian never intended to summon a purger? In response to his question, the professor sat down to inspect the containers and said, "I'm not sure if he didn't want to or couldn't, but it seems these spatial magic devices have been pushed to their absolute limit. This is probably all they're capable of doing." As for Bella, during this time, she took the opportunity to look around. She quickly realized the value of the equipment installed here. "I think this set of equipment is extremely valuable. I've never seen a spatial teleportation spell so precise and powerful." Her opinion was completely shared by Professor Ariel. "That's right, just as you said. To create a set of equipment like this, it would cost an entire nation's budget. And there are 8 sets just like it here. There's only one organization that comes to my mind." Hearing this, Bella immediately blurted out a name, guessing the Disca Empire. The red-haired professor shook her head, rejecting the answer. "It's not them. They might be the largest nation in the world, but their magical research isn't advanced enough to create something like this." The professor's answer made Bella even more curious. "Then who is it?" she asked again. Ariel didn't answer right away, speaking slowly. "It has to be an organization whose research capabilities far surpass the Empire's." Before she could finish her sentence, Ray suddenly cut in. "The World Union Academy." "Right?" Hearing this, Bella turned to look at Gray with a puzzled expression, while the female professor immediately agreed exactly. What other research institute could handle the scale and budget of something like this? After those words, suddenly, the atmosphere in this room fell silent. It took a few seconds for Bella to speak. "So you're saying the Academy is behind this place, but the World Union Academy is supposed to be a place that protects humanity from threats?" Faced with her student's naive thought, the professor just shook her head slightly. It's understandable that you don't want to believe it, but there's no other organization that could have pulled this off. Over here, our main character also asked worriedly, but that doesn't mean the entire academy is our enemy, is it? Right. Most of them are still on the side of justice. As he said that, he quietly recalled the events that happened in his past life to reassure himself. At least before the regression happened, the Academy's volunteer forces were the ones on the front lines, even surpassing the Punisher Squad. They fought to protect civilians until the very end. After witnessing that future, I can't believe the Academy is humanity's enemy. Fortunately, not to disappoint Gray, the professor didn't refute that. Just as you said, the majority of the Academy must still be fighting for humanity and wouldn't allow sacrificial experiments like this to take place. However, the Academy has countless researchers and facilities. Very few people truly know the whole picture, and the one behind Varian certainly has massive backing. With Varian's authority, there's no way he could have arranged this himself. Experience AI voice technology at vb.vn. Hearing the professor's explanation, Bella began to sense just how serious everything was. She asked, "So, does that mean we can't completely trust the Academy either?" Ariel calmly and quietly stated a bitter truth. "I've observed the Academy from the inside for decades. It's not an organization that you can blindly trust. That's for sure. Most of the people in it believe that they are doing good for humanity. Even the ones behind this experiment have probably convinced themselves that they are acting for the greater good. The truth is buried deep in the shadows." Back to Gray. He didn't want to waste any more time, so he got straight to the point. "Do you have a way to track down the mastermind?" At this suggestion, Ariel immediately used her holy eye to search for clues. Then she said, "Let's see. There are no communication devices in this facility. Even the magical traces of the Creator have been completely erased from the equipment. The concealment was done so meticulously that finding a trace is extremely difficult." As she spoke, she glanced in one direction. Right after that, a huge explosion suddenly occurred behind Ariel. Explosions went off everywhere, as if this secret research facility was self-destructing. This terrified the main character. In this perilous situation, Ariel was still observing cheerfully. It seems they also installed a trace erasing mechanism, but it didn't self-destruct immediately after Varian's death. Could it be they waited for an intruder before detonating it? Not letting her professor observe any longer, Bella quickly reminded her, "This isn't the time for hypothesizing. We have to get out of here immediately." Witnessing her student's hasty demeanor, Ariel just let out a soft laugh. "Calm down, it's just explosive magic. Professors of the World Union Academy aren't weak enough to be killed by something like that," Ariel said with a face full of confidence. She activated a protective magic circle, shielding the group from the room's destruction. She reminded the two, "Don't step out of the magic circle." The energy pillars were still glowing brightly. The room was severely damaged. From the ceiling, chunks of rock began to fall. Outside, it was now desolate and silent. The group was safely brought outside by Ariel's teleportation spell. Brought outside safely. She did a quick head count and said, "It seems all the captured people are safe now." Bella also breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought we were dead for sure this time." Gray was also worried. "Wasn't that too dangerous?" Professor Ariel calmly replied, "Because there was more baggage than I anticipated. The teleportation spell preparation was a bit slow, but it was worth it. Because we managed to get these." What she was referring to were those energy pillars. "Once we bring these back to the Academy, they won't be able to ignore us anymore." A full moon shone brightly in the night sky. The next morning, at the World Union Academy, in the headmaster's office, he announced, "The survivors are being treated at the Academy's medical facility." Today, Oradrom commended Gray's group. "I really have to thank all of you for stopping Varian's illegal experiment." He picked up a report to examine. Now about the magic engines he had, each one is worth more than a nation's treasury. And Ariel added worriedly, "That's right. And there were 8 of them in total. There's no way Varian could have gathered that kind of firepower on his own. Where on earth did he get them?" The headmaster replied, "They were stolen." He looked at them and continued, "They were hijacked during transport. All 78 transport agents were wiped out." Hearing these words, both Bella and Gray were horrified. Ariel, still sharp, asked, 78 of the Academy's transport agents all dead? Don't tell me that was the incident from 15 years ago." The headmaster confirmed, "That's right. The cargo stolen that year were these very engines." She then asked in a low voice, "If I remember correctly, the one responsible at the time was..." The headmaster knew all too well. "Eclipse," he said. "I'm sure you've all heard that name before." Ray and Bella indeed knew it as the world's largest criminal organization, the parasites of humanity. No matter how many times they're destroyed, they just crawl back out of the shadows. Oradrum suddenly glanced at Bella. She was seething with hatred. They're also the ones who killed my parents. He replied in a low voice. That's right. Even if we wipe them out 100 times, they'll just reappear. No one knows where they hide, nor does anyone know who their leader is. It is said that over 70% of deaths related to crime are caused by them, and it wouldn't be surprising if some of their members have already infiltrated this academy. What's worse is that there's no way to identify them, and even if we could, the academy wouldn't act. Ray was indignant upon hearing this. Even if there are criminals in the academy, Ariel stepped in to stop him. That's just how the academy operates now. Anyone with talent is given the chance to become stronger, regardless of lineage, race, or gender. The headmaster confirmed exactly. And also whether or not that person is a criminal is irrelevant. Bella found this rule absurd. If there are criminals here, they should be punished. The headmaster was helpless. I agree, but the higher-ups don't think so, Bella asked worriedly. Aren't you the headmaster? Oradrum could only reply, I'm just a figurehead. He slammed the file down on the table. I may be the face of the academy in name, but my actual authority is insignificant. Do you want to know who's really running this academy? Both Bella and Gray nodded silently and decisively, yet Oradrum just smiled, then become stronger. The more you prove your individual strength, the deeper you'll be allowed to venture into the academy, and you'll gradually uncover its hidden secrets. He added, I can't name names, but you have an upperclassman who has enough influence to determine the entire direction of the academy. Even the insane policy of allowing criminals to join was his decision. Yes, Gray asked quietly, so if we're stronger than him? The headmaster confirmed, that's right. You might even be able to change the entire academy. He looked straight at them. Here, strength is everything. Gray's and Bella's hands both clenched into fists. Oradrum looked at them and thought, this is interesting. Ariel had no chance of winning against Varian, which means one of those two did it. Ariel's God's eye is as sharp as ever. I can't wait to see what kind of monster she'll create. By now, Gray had left the headmaster's office. He looked at the curse mark on his hand and said to himself, so, power to run the academy, huh? If I want to defeat the Purger or find the mastermind behind it all, first I have to worry about getting stronger. Suddenly, a figure walking past bumped into him. Ray, startled, said sorry. But right after that, a kick came straight at him. Ray was hit and sent flying. Luckily, he managed to stay on his feet. But the damage from that kick was not insignificant. The attacker, seeing this, remarked, tougher than I thought. But Ray still asked politely, is there a problem? The guy gritted his teeth. A problem? The psycho started yelling, walking around like you own the place. A special admission failure. Like you. Deserves to walk in this hallway. Ray understood. So it's another one who hates special admissions. But this is the first time someone has dared to kick me right in the middle of the hallway. He tightened his grip on the sword at his hip and asked, you want to fight? The guy pondered for a moment, then replied, I'd love to, but it looks like the second failure has just arrived. Behind Gray, Professor Ariel was approaching. The guy started to leave. I'll be going then. As he walked, he muttered curses. Sorry, the surveillance here is very strict, so I can't get any closer. He bit his thumb until it bled and whispered, but I'll be sending someone else there soon. Varian. On this side, Professor Ariel approached and asked, what happened? Ray greeted her first, Professor Ariel. Then he said, some student just kicked me. He said a God's Eye special admission student, like me, shouldn't be showing my face in the academy's hallways. She assessed the situation and replied, no weapon, no injuries. That means I have no official reason to intervene. Then Ariel looked at him and asked, so why didn't you chase him down and punch his lights out? Gray was surprised. Wait, I'm allowed to do that. She acted as if she didn't care. Officially, as a professor, I can't allow it. But my eyesight has been getting bad lately. If something were to happen nearby, I probably wouldn't see it. Well, Gray decided not to dwell on it. That's way too suspicious. Let's just drop it. I don't want to cause any more trouble. Ariel didn't see it that way. What a shame. Really? Suddenly she asked, let me ask you something. Are God's Eye special admission students really hated that much? Gray slightly hit his arm and replied, people mock us a lot. But this is the first time someone's actually gotten physical. Ariel then asked, so you've been made fun of? She felt helpless for him. I'm sorry. If I had a little more authority. Gray, seeing this, comforted her. Please don't worry about it. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have even been able to set foot in this academy. Besides, Bella, and everyone else will prove that the God's Eye program wasn't a mistake. After all, your judgment is very sharp. Hearing these words, Professor Ariel pondered for a moment. She felt her heart lighten considerably. Thank you. Then she pointed straight at Gray and said, but don't think this is someone else's problem. Of all the God's Eye students, I have the highest expectations for you. She listed a few names: Amy White, Licker Muller, Jacob Bloomfield as previous special admission students. They all became top-tier talents. But the first time, I believed someone could surpass human limits, was when I met you. Faced with the professor's expectations, Ray thought compared to them it won't be easy. But he had another worry. Thinking like that is weak. The person behind Varian probably hasn't given up on summoning the Purger. Even they couldn't do anything against that thing. I returned to this timeline to make sure that I could defeat it. The fate of this world is in my hands. At the World Union Academy's training grounds, Professor Doc explained. Today's swordsmanship class will be live combat. Pair up according to the list on the board. Ray thought to himself, live combat, I have to give it my all. If I slip up, people will start bad-mouthing the God's Eye students again. At the very least, I have to prove I'm not inferior to a regular student. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. Oh, crap. The pairing on the board read Ray versus Leon H. Ray thought to himself, Leon H. the top of the swordsmanship course, isn't he the strongest first year? The professor addressed the students. I've paired up students with comparable abilities, so feel free to go all out. Treat it like a real battle. In his mind, Gray was vehemently protesting. Comparable abilities? My ass, why do I have to fight the top student? When I'm a special admission, Ray thought it over. And he hates God's Eye students too. He's probably itching to give me a real beating. After last time, suddenly he noticed someone behind him. Speak of the devil, Leon said cheerfully. Looks like we're a pair. I'm really happy about that. He was thrilled to be fighting Ray. It's an honor to fight the top of the class. I've trained harder than anyone else. Ray witnessed my true swordsmanship. Ray, on the other hand, was growing more horrified. That dazzling smile, there's no doubt about it. He's ecstatic that he finally has a legitimate chance to beat me up. Leon added with feeling, I'm really looking forward to this. On the training ground, the proctor asked, is everyone ready? The command rang out, begin. Immediately, the students began to spar with their partners. Leon brandished his sword and charged. Here I come! Fortunately, Gray managed to block it. Leon swung his sword hard, knocking him back. Instantly, he seized the opportunity and charged forward again. Leon thrust his sword forward powerfully. Luckily, Gray dodged in time. Not to be outdone, he swung his own sword up. The two swords clashed powerfully. Leon commented to Gray, you're really strong. It's hard to believe you didn't get in through regular admission. Lightning-fast blades continued to be exchanged. The two were evenly matched. Ray thought, I thought I'd be defeated instantly. But I'm actually holding my own. But even with all my strength, I can't match his raw power. He carefully observed Leon. His swordsmanship is incredible. It's a textbook perfect style of swordsmanship. Every movement is terrifyingly flawless, even though Gray had experience from his past life and training from his master. This guy has only lived one life and he's already a monster. Before everyone's eyes, Leon and Gray fought so fast only the after-images of their swords were visible. They were amazed. He's evenly matched with Leon. Heart. Leon was just as happy. This is amazing. I could do this all day. But Gray was exhausted. I'm out of stamina. If it weren't for Professor Ariel's training, I would have collapsed already. He looked at Leon. How is he not even out of breath? Full of apprehension, he thought, I'm about to collapse. I have to end this now. The professor said to fight like it's real, right? Treat it like a real battle. Instantly, Gray's eyes sharpened. In front of him, Leon was winding up for a swing. He swung hard, but Gray ducked and dodged it. Gray pushed off the ground with his hand. Leon was horrified. What? Gray had gathered his strength from a low stance and kicked hard at Leon's leg. Leon, still stunned, was kicked squarely in the leg. What? Gray seized the opportunity and thrust his sword up from below. Now he was horrified. So he's treating this like a life-or-death battle. For real. But Leon still swung his sword up. He was resolute. I can't lose. Both blades were at each other's throats. Both Leon and Gray held their stances ready to take their opponent's life. He lowered his sword first and extended his hand. It's a draw. Good fight. Leon replied, not quite. He thought back to that moment. All I could do was swing my sword. On the other hand, you could have pierced my heart if you wanted to. Leon looked sharply at Gray and asked, because this was a mock battle, you aimed for my neck instead. Am I wrong? He had to admit you've got me there, even with all these protective charms. Isn't aiming a sword at someone's heart in a mock battle a garbage move? Leon didn't seem to care. But that still means I lost. With that, he turned and walked away. Thanks to you, I finally understand the difference between a real fight and training. Swordsmanship and warfare, it's not just about skill with a blade. Ray still tried to smooth things over. That was partly a cheap shot in a swordsmanship class. Anyway, but Leon cut him off. The teacher told us to treat it like a real fight. In a real fight, there's no holding back. He turned on his heel, raised his sword, and excitedly challenged. Let's go another round. Facing Gray's bloodthirsty blade, again, I only won because I caught you off guard. If we fight head-on, I don't stand a chance. This isn't even about technique anymore. That guy's overall physical stats make me feel like trash. Suddenly, someone approached and cut in. Stop right there. An arrogant student said, whether this is real combat training or not, this is a sword class. Nobody said you could use anything other than a sword. He sneered at Gray. And how does a special admission reject like you get paired with the top student? Don't get cocky just because you have a little magic. He thought to himself, I didn't choose this match. Unexpectedly, Leon stepped forward to claim his territory. The professor decided I am the only one worthy of fighting Gray. Please step aside. Yes, the professor also came forward and said just like Leon. I made the pairings. I paired students with comparable overall strength. Right, he affirmed. Gray is the only one who can face Leon. He nodded with great satisfaction. The professor looked at the troublemaker. If you're not satisfied, try fighting him. Defeat Gray and you can be Leon's opponent. Provoked, he angrily agreed. Fine. He still tried to taunt, I defeated an examiner to get in here. Don't lump me in with those who barely scraped by with a draw, or those who didn't even pass. But Leon looked down on him. He's judging Gray based on his admission type without knowing his true strength. It makes me feel like I'm looking at my old self. He trusted him unconditionally. This is a really good opportunity. His strength deserves to be recognized. Then Leon shifted his focus. But more importantly, you interrupted my time with Gray. Seeing his look, the guy quickly looked up, only to see Leon's handsome face contorted with rage. For that crime alone, you deserve to die. What a troublemaker. I don't get why he's so mad. The professor said to Gray, if you don't like the real combat rule, fine. You can only use your sword, got it. Behind him, Leon was still full of resentment. He worried, I really don't know how strong this guy is, but if he got into the academy through the regular exam, he won't be easy. Gray sized up his opponent. He definitely has better stamina and physical strength than me. Despite my master's hellish training, I can't beat years of proper nutrition and physical conditioning. Ray decided to leave himself an out. I'm not too confident in my skills, but losing doesn't mean I get expelled, right? The professor also said this is just a class exercise. Anyway, don't go easy on each other. Ray raised his sword. All right. The other guy also got into a ready stance. Instantly, he seized the opportunity and rushed forward. He thrust his sword forward, roaring, time to teach the special admission kid his place. Remember your place? Immediately, the two swords clashed hard. Suddenly, Gray was surprised. He flicked his sword lightly, and then sent him flying backward. The troublemaker was stunned, and Gray thought he hit so lightly. His strength is nothing special. The guy angrily wound up his sword. Ray thought, is he holding back? Unexpectedly, the guy was defeated on the second blow. He fell backward, his head hitting the ground. The professor announced the result, the match is over. Ray approached and asked worriedly, sorry, are you okay? I was aiming for your sword, but I hit you instead. I thought you would dodge. The guy, not wanting to give up, picked up his sword. It was just a coincidence. You just caught me off guard. Despite his bruised face and runny nose and tears, he still said, let's go another round. Everyone was buzzing. Man, that looks like it really hurt. The professor was also helpless. Keep fighting until you're satisfied then. So he raised his sword and attacked again. In the middle of the bright, sunny training ground, Ray asked worriedly, are you okay? The other guy, his eye already swollen shut, muttered, I'm fine. The professor, exasperated, said, all right, that's enough. Someone take him to the infirmary. He gathered the students and announced, and so this year's representatives will be Gray and Leon. Any objections? He asked curiously. Representatives. The professor replied, pointing at Gray's face. The two strongest first-year students will fight the second-year champion in the inter-year match. The first years have lost 35 times in a row. His eyes were full of confidence. But maybe this year will be different.